This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
Listen, I would love to pay my staff more. I do. I mean, I would love that to see the minimum wage increase, but I'm currently only worth £1.2 billion. And therefore, I mean, it is just catastrophic what this government has done. Absolutely awful. It's not even parody. It's just an echo. 4 minutes after 10 is the time. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Hands up if you think you're qualified to provide impartial, expert analysis of what happened yesterday. For the benefit of people not enjoying this on YouTube, my arms remain firmly by my side. But we have to try. And as ever on this programme, we find ourselves having to try to see the light when so much effort is being put into immersing us, engulfing us in darkness. Let's run through the front pages of your newspapers today. Return of tax and spend, says The Guardian. A record tax burden, says The Times. Reeves, £40 billion tax bombshell for Britain's strivers, says the now reliably hysterical Daily Mail, although, as is also a matter of tradition now, the Daily Telegraph manages to be even more hysterical with the phrase nightmare on Downing Street. And what I love about the Daily Telegraph, and I won't detain you unduly with regard to newspapers to start with, but we do need to remind ourselves, I think routinely, how we've ended up in a country where anyone could sort of think that the budget analysis, the morning after the budget analysis, is the morning to throw open the floor to various Tory grandees and recently dismissed politicians. But the Daily Telegraph lists across the top of its front page 5 commentators, and I haven't checked on all of them, but certainly I think most of them were not long ago cheering from the rooftops and setting off the party poppers in response to Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng's fiscal catastrophe. So can you imagine another job which you would still have if you'd proved your idiocy and your incompetence so completely as by greeting Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng's fiscal moment as the finest thing that had ever happened in Britain? I'm not even exaggerating. One of them described it as the best budget of his lifetime. The Daily Mail, of course, had a front page reading, finally a true Tory budget. So it's important that I mention this to you because you hear a lot of analysis and a lot of coverage from people that told you that what Liz Truss did was brilliant. On the radio, not just in the newspapers. In fact, you could invite onto the radio the people from the newspapers who were shouting at the very top of their voices that what Liz Truss did was brilliant. While, and this is the important bit, anybody who really understood anything would have known what was going to happen. And the reason why I can say that to you without any fear of political bias is because Rishi Sunak explained it during the Conservative Party leadership campaign. My days, I have to tell you, I don't know whether I'm going to have a second wind of youthful optimism, but my days of thinking that we wouldn't need to explain this soon after Labour got in, I'm afraid have completely disappeared, not least listening to some of the so-called analysis of the budget this morning. I'd love to pay more to my staff, but I've only got £1.2 billion in the bank, so it's just not, can't do it, terribly sorry, but anyway. So Rishi Sunak explained what would happen if Liz Truss introduced the things that she introduced. The right-wing media queued up. They were literally elbowing each other out of the way. They were pulling each other's ponytails in order to get to the front of the queue of people, shouting from the rooftops that this is bloody brilliant. This is absolutely fantastic. This is what we want. So please remember that this morning. Even if you find me unbearable and you only listen because the knob's fallen off your radio and you can't work out how to change station, please, from the bottom of my heart, be kinder to yourself than to think that the people who told you Liz Truss was an economic genius can be trusted to tell you what happened yesterday. I speak of print, I speak of broadcast, and obviously I speak of social media as well. So, The Sun. At least she kept it down at the pumpkins. I don't understand that. I think it might be a reference to fuel, but The Sun has lost its way. in recent years, not least because the Daily Mail and the Daily Telegraph have sort of stolen their lunch when it comes to hysterical and detached from fact political journalism. Reeves's great £40 billion tax gamble is the front page of the I newspaper, which I am going to suggest to you is the most honest one we've seen so far. Reeves's great £40 billion tax gamble. Daily Express, again, you think I exaggerate. How many is that now that we could loosely describe as hysterical? Halloween horror show, says the Daily Express. The Daily Mirror, which I think has a bias in the opposite direction, but is a lonely, lonely voice, talks of spending power, £70 billion worth of spending on our public services. Who wouldn't like that? Except perhaps people who neither value nor use our public services much. But of course, the question of whether or not we can, quotes, afford it, end quotes, is going to lie at the very heart of any analysis this morning. And then a newspaper which I really would read more if I had the time. They're always tempting me in with funny, soft touch, light-hearted front pages. Sod the budget. This is the biggest and most important story today. Ghosts are dying out. Fewer and fewer reported sightings of supernatural beings, according to statistics crunched this morning by your super soar-away Daily Star. So I guess that would be the one that a normal country would turn to first. The I newspaper's front page, Reeves' great £40 billion tax gamble. What is she gambling on? What is she hoping to achieve? What have you been distracted by this morning? Jeremy Clarkson talking about farms without many people mentioning that when he bought a farm for several £1 million not long ago, he explicitly stated that he did so to avoid death duties. He did so in order to be able to pass on even more of his fortune to the next generation than he could do by simply owning lots of stuff that wasn't farms. So again, the distraction of the farms, if you like, could be... And actually, the other thing on the front page of the I newspaper, and you might need to pinch yourself for this, is an article by Kwasi Kwarteng which says, I admitted, Reeves is clearing up the Tory mess. And there's an article you'd turn to, wouldn't you, if you had a sort of vaguely clear-eyed interest in the state of the country. I admit it, Reeves is clearing up the Tory mess. But you turn to the Tory papers, and they are still claiming expertise and sharpening their cudgels for the woman who the man who made the mess has described as trying to clear it up. Come on. I get stuck on this most days, this mad, biased, distorted lens through which we look at most of the news. But have there been many days since Brexit when it's been as crystal clear as it is today? I'd love to pay more. I'd love to pay staff more. But I'm only worth £1.2 billion. So, how can I possibly find the money for a 60 pence an hour pay rise for my staff? I'm a baron, by the way. Did I mention I'm a baron? Yes, David Cameron put me in the House of Lords. I used to be Treasury of the Tory party. What's that you want? Expert impartial analysis of the budget? Yeah, absolutely. Pull up a chair, Lord Spencer. Absolutely extraordinary, really. But Kwasi Kwarteng, who for once is someone I'm going to describe today as worth listening to, is talking about clearing up the Tory mess. So, what is she trying to do? I want to start, if I may, with something that deserves, I think, a little bit more coverage, but it is not sexy. It is not sexy. £14 billion has been set aside. As far as I can tell, this is part of the reason for the black hole that we keep hearing about, because the Tories announced that they were going to pay £12 billion to victims of the infected blood scandal without actually budgeting for or explaining where the money was going to come from. The Labour government yesterday, Rachel Reeves yesterday, announced £14 billion in compensation payments for victims of both the infected blood and the Horizon scandal. And I want to take a moment, if I may, to reflect upon what a powerful moment of politics that is. It's not the most important element of the budget by a long stretch in the context of our economic health or our growth forecasts or our collective future. But in the context of what it says about a society, what it reminds us of regarding our own responsibilities and our own relationship with the state or relationship with the government, whatever you prefer to call it. This is why we need it. This is what big government or responsible citizenry is all about. All the ghouls who've had their hands on the steering wheel since 2016 and led us into all of the messes that we're currently in are banging on endlessly about small government and a small state and the rest of it. I've got another tickle in my throat. I do apologise. And yet, how on earth would you find £14 billion to look after people summarily and completely abandoned, let down, health compromised by things that happened in this country, if not from the government? So there's no phone in here, there's no particular axe to grind. The Tories announced it but didn't budget for it, so that was a good thing to do, albeit imperfect. Labour have included it in the £40 billion worth of spending that was announced yesterday. So take a step back, if you would. Let's not talk in the first instance, we may do later, about private schools or landlords, not specifically. Those aren't the topics. I want you to use those as elements of the biggest picture, the bigger picture. The Times breaks things down quite helpfully into winners and losers. Let me read you who the Times, Rupert Murdoch's Times, describe as the losers, okay? Inheritance tax, investors, landlords and second homeowners, employers, private schools, non-doms, farmers and smokers. Now that's 8 constituencies that the Times experts have identified as coming out of yesterday's announcement worse off than they went in, to varying degrees. And with the possible exception of employers and farmers, and maybe smokers? Actually, let's take employers. I mean, who should have come out of yesterday less well off than they went in? You're talking about a reduction, not a abolition. You're talking, so if I read you that list again, inheritance tax. So here we're talking about people with significant sums in excess of £500,000, significant sums to pass on to the next generation. Okay. And pensions, which I'm so ignorant, stroke innocent. I didn't even know you could pass on a pension to your children. I mean, it seems extraordinary to me in some ways. I thought pensions ran out when you did. But that's just yet more evidence of how unqualified I am to run an economy. Happily, I'd do all right running a radio show because you're there to fill in the gaps and help me out when I stumble. So people who are, by definition, in the upper percentiles of asset-rich wealth, okay, they are going to have to give more of it back to the Treasury, to the country, than they currently do. I think you can probably live with that. Investors, ditto. It seems to me increasingly that the sole purpose of wealth in the 20th and 21st century is to find ways of making it ever easier to accrue more wealth as a reward for having wealth in the first place. And that's fine. If that's how you get your jollies, that's fine. But the role of a government and the role of a society is, I think, to put limits on this. And I think to put brakes upon the rapacious profiteering that sees calls for the deregulation of the financial services industry or the deregulation of the cladding provision industry. Like at every turn, you see Tory politicians trying to make it easier for rich people to get richer. No one is going to stop them from being rich, but they are being asked to give a little bit back more into the country that provides the education, the health service, the transport infrastructure, the army, the police, you name it, of all of their workforce. I always think people overlook that. Where would you be without big government? You wouldn't have you wouldn't have an educated, healthy workforce. So there, landlords and second homeowners, again, lots of them are lovely. I was a landlord for a while, and it didn't make me Rackman. It didn't turn me into an evil money-grabbing monster. Lots of landlords are lovely, but when you sell the property you've rented out, the percentage of tax that you pay on the profit that you make shouldn't be very, very much lower than the amount of tax on the earnings that your tenant makes in order to pay your rent every month. It just seems to me to be self-evident. Employers, we'll probably talk about that in more detail in the second hour. But where are you going to get the money from? If it's a straight choice between employers and employees, you're probably going to lean towards employers. Private schools, 7% of us, wealthy stroke lucky enough to be able to send our children to private school, but we don't pay VAT on the school fees in the way that you pay VAT on a steak bake. That can't be right. That's just ridiculous. But, you can hear the squealing from space. Non-DOMs, which allows foreign residents living in the UK to avoid paying tax on overseas income. Again, abolished from April. We'll see what it does. We'll see what it raises. But if you are enjoying the fruits of this country while not paying tax on money that you earn while living here, regardless of where it is being earned, then you are in an advantageous position compared to those of us who don't have that luxury. And maybe that advantageous position is unfair. Smokers, that is actually sacrificing money in a way, because this isn't something that's introduced to raise money. This is introduced to make it too expensive for you to smoke. So when that policy succeeds, people won't be smoking and vaping as much, so the duty will not actually be coming into the Treasury. So again, it's slightly more complicated than some analysis would allow. And then the farms. So about 200 farming estates a year are subject potentially to the changes in the inheritance tax. They have over 10 years to pay about £20,000 a year, and I hope that all farms will be able to afford that. I guarantee that there'll be plenty of farmers already insisting that they can't. Time will tell. So, thank you to Chris for suggesting that Keith burp me in order to deal with the little frog in the throat. I don't think burping helps with a tickly throat, and I also don't think it's in Keith's job description, Chris. So I've spent a little longer than I imagined or intended dancing around the houses. I may need to spend even longer after this next hiatus explaining what I want you to call me for. But I'd like you to try now, because what's the big plan here? Set aside the specifics. Set aside the details. The winners, by the way, are higher earners, lower earners, carers, pensioners, drivers, electric vehicle owners, and the hospitality industry. Although, again, the hospitality industry may not see it like that. That's the Times. What is Rachel Reeves trying to do? Okay? And that doesn't allow, I'm sure there are plenty of radio shows you can ring and say, she's trying to turn us into a communist country. You need to have an IQ in double figures to contribute to this conversation. All right, that's not true every day. Some days you're more than welcome to ring me and tell me how brilliantly Brexit is going. But what is Rachel Reeves actually trying to do? This is a budget like none I've ever seen. This is actually huge. You need to clear the weeds out of the way to have a look at what she's actually done. And I think what she's done is make an enormous gamble. But on what? Biggest tax increases in a generation, £40 billion in hikes to employer national insurance contributions, capital gains, inheritance tax. Looking to do what? £25 billion for the NHS, £6.7 billion for schools and investment in roads and rail, £12 billion, everyone's leaving out of the analysis, for people profoundly let down by the infected blood scandal and the Horizon Post Office scandal. So what is she trying to do to the UK? All right. And Kevin's right. Double figures. It has to be IQs in triple figures to ring in. All right. So sorry. But I mean, at least we won't be hearing from some members of the shadow cabinet. 0345 6060 973. What is she actually trying to do? Beyond the micro, beyond the, aren't the farmers angry? Beyond the, great news for carers, beyond these little details, important but little details. What is she trying to do to the country? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. 0345 6060 973.
James O'Brien on LBC.
4 minutes after 10. The minute I say you're not allowed to ring in if you haven't got an IQ in triple figures, I get a text from someone in precisely that category, and I wonder whether we should talk to them more as well, because it would be so amusing. Here we go. JOB defending Labour when he knows they're in the wrong. Champagne socialist. precisely the sort of person that people like Lord Spencer, the former treasurer of the Tory party, relies on the support of when he talks about how we can't afford minimum wage from the perspective of having personal wealth of £1.2 billion. I'm interested in Dyson as well, on the James Dyson on the farming front. A couple of you already texting me from Somerset about what the impact of inheritance tax changes might be on a fortune like his. But we digress. Here's what I think she's trying to do. And I do approve of it, but I have absolutely no idea whether it will work or not. So that is not a defence of Labour, it's an analysis of Labour. Obviously, if you haven't got an IQ in triple figures, you won't know the difference. I think she's trying to redraw the rules of our national economy. I think she is sounding the death knell for the idea that if you let very, very wealthy people and or business owners do whatever they want on the promise that that will be good for everybody. When the tide rises, so do all the ships. That's not true, is it? And we've seen that that's not true. Even as GDP goes up, the gap between the people with the most and the rest of us has got bigger and bigger and bigger, because that's what so-called free market economics is hinges on. Whether you actually read your Hayek or whether you have to absorb the kind of bowdlerized, half-witted versions popularized by organizations in the environs of Tufton Street. The idea is that the market will self-regulate. You know, if you let business do whatever it wants, and it doesn't mean like your local newsagents or the lady in Cheshire yesterday with 5 shops. It means the massive multinationals. You let them do whatever they want, and that will somehow be for the benefit of everybody. And the same is true of wealth on a smaller level. Let the people who've got enough money to make more money from having money look after them, and that will somehow look after everybody else. It's the opposite, if you like, of looking after the pennies, and the pounds will look after themselves. The argument at 14 years of Tory rule has been if you look after the pounds, the pennies will somehow benefit. And we haven't. You haven't. So that is what I think she's trying to do. So question 1 is, do you agree? And question number 2 is, will it work? Question number 3 is, why hasn't he taken a call yet? Well, I can answer that one now. David's in Bayswater. David, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Great to speak to you. So, two main points. Thank you. 2 main points. I think, first of all, she's trying to invest in people so to get them back into the workforce. So, for example, through the 22 billion for the national health, hopefully that'll help a lot of people to get back into work. And also, she's setting a new moral tone for politics by giving the money for the Horizon and the blood infections. Because I think the Conservative politicians fail completely to really help those situations. So she's trying to put the country back in the right moral course. I
think the Tories announced the compensation scheme, certainly for the infected blood, but they didn't.
But they were slow in acting, weren't they?
Well, they didn't budget for it. They didn't explain where the money was going to come from, because, of course, that would have involved saying we've got to raise £12 billion from tax rises, and they didn't want to say that. So I think there is an honesty there, which should probably be applauded a little bit more than it has been. But you see that it's not a sexy story because it affects a very specific and limited group of people, whereas some of the, does the farming stuff, actually, but the right wing can use that to whip up anger. Do you think it will work?
What? Sorry,
what you've described, the mission she has set herself.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think honestly, I believe that the fact she's giving this money to the Horizon and for the blood infections, I think people are going to really admire that. I think she's a great woman. I really do. I'm so inspired by her.
Blimey.
Yeah, I really do, because I think it took a lot of courage for her to do that. It's 14 billion, James, and you know, she's been going on about how we have a lack of money, and she's shown she cares for those people who are the bottom society who suffered the most. I really admire her.
So would it be
really do.
Excessive to suggest that she's moving people back into the heart of economic decision making, as opposed to wealth and institutions or businesses?
Absolutely, that's very well put. Yeah, she's making us realize we're all human beings. We have all the same problems, and she's trying. Well, we don't all, but obviously she's putting the people at the bottom. Yeah, and making us care for each other more, I think. But James, can I make one more point? I forgot to say about the higher wages for the lowest paid workers. I think she's trying to encourage a lot of English people, maybe British people, who wouldn't want to do those jobs to do them because you know they were done by people from abroad in the past. And
I'm never, as you will know if you listen to the program, I'm never convinced by the existence of that constituency on anything like the scale that you presume here, because it would mean that they're sitting at home watching telly all day long and not doing any work, which I don't think is true. But certainly, the obvious. It's mad, isn't it, that we live in a country where it could be controversial to say we're going to raise the wages of the lowest workers and then hear from a man worth £1.2 billion about why that's a bad idea. As I actually happened to me this morning. These ears, David. It's an extraordinary experience. But anyway, so okay, 10:30 is the time. I suppose in a way, it might be difficult to deny that she's doing what David describes. It is an analysis that fits all of the evidence. You might not like it or you might not think it would succeed, but she is trying to move people back into economic decision making, a pay rise for the 3 million lowest paid people in the country, measurably improved circumstances for carers, the financial situation of carers who risked losing what they received in an allowance if they earned more than £150 a week. They've seen that figure, that £151 a week, increased by £45 a week, about 60,000 people expected to receive that benefit. The pensioners inevitably have done all right, and you've got no beef with that until, of course, the pensioners start insisting that other people should suck it up. But my mum is a pensioner. I will be a pensioner one day, God willing. You will be a pensioner one day, God willing. It's an odd constituency to focus on if you're looking for ways in which to raise money. But the idea that what she's done here is recalibrate government to look after people instead of money. I think it's going to be quite hard for you to challenge that analysis. You're more than welcome to tell me she's made a terrible mistake or to tell me that it won't work, but that is what she's trying to do, which is precisely why money, in this case the owners of the Daily Mail, the owners of the Daily Telegraph, the owners of the Times, the owners of various other outlets, the owners of some presenters even, the owners of £1.2 billion of personal wealth who don't think we can afford minimum wage. That's why money is so spooked today. But should we be? 0345 6060 973. It's 10:32. Thomas Watts has your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
35 is the time. There were moments yesterday, as Keith has just pointed out, where it did look a little bit personal, as if Rachel Reeves was targeting Rishi Sunak directly. I think about it. Obviously, the inheritance tax stuff is something that is going to be very relevant to him. Investors, that's where he made his fortune. I don't know how many homes he owns. I don't think he rents any of them out. I think they keep them all for themselves, don't they? But maybe that would still count as a second home, wouldn't it, whether you rent it out or not? So, yeah, that would affect him. Employers, his wife is certainly an employer. Private schools, non-doms, his wife, of course, was a non-dom, even as he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. And then the absolute kicker was when she announced an increase on private jets, the tariff that every passenger. I thought, to be fair, look, I know I sometimes come across as a bit left-wing, but people work bloody hard for their private jets, you know? I don't think other people realise how hard you worked, and they make other sacrifices. They go without fancy holidays. That doesn't work. Let me try something else. They go without... What do people say during the private education conversation? They go without nice cars. Quite a lot of people only have private jets because they don't have fancy cars. So, I know sometimes it can all seem a little bit left-wing, but people work bloody hard for their private jets, and I think that's an appalling policy by Rachel Reeves to go after. So it did all look a little bit personal. Won't somebody think of the non-doms? Won't somebody think of the private jet owners? Won't somebody think of the landlords? Won't somebody think of the second homeowners? Won't somebody think of the parents who can send their children to private school? You see what I mean? And why is that so powerful politically? Because those are all synonyms for wealth. There is nothing wrong with wealth, but there is a problem with inequality. Write this down. It's really important. There is nothing wrong with wealth. And even if there was, it is as inevitable and as human as breathing. There is something horribly, historically, and heinously wrong with inequality, which is also as inevitable as breathing. The role of government, the role of civilized society, is to minimize the inequality by limiting the wealth. We've had 14 years of unlimiting wealth, of untrammeled wealth. We've had 14 years of being told that the way in which you enrich the food bank using full-time worker in Birmingham is by making sure that his boss can have £1.2 billion in the bank before he pops up on your telly or your radio explaining why we can't afford the minimum wage. That is it. So no one is abolishing wealth, but you minimise inequality by limiting wealth. And again, I mean, where do you turn for your analysis? The Institute of Fiscal Studies, as Thomas just explained in his headline, has greeted it with cautious applause. What do you think she's doing? What do you think the plan is? Jan is in Cannock. Jan, what would you like to say?
How you doing, James?
Very well, mate. What's on your mind?
Good. I'm a financial advisor, and I just wanted to perhaps offer my perspective a little bit in terms of what impact some of the changes could have, in particular the pension changes being included in the inheritance tax.
Okay. Not the broader question of what you think she's actually trying to do in a macro or a meta kind of way. That's fine. But just to be clear.
Sure. Well, I think I can see what she's trying to do, and I think starting by increasing the minimum wage is a clear example of that. And hats off to, I think it's a great move. Why not pay the people earning the least a little bit more? Who can argue against that?
I know that was a rhetorical question, but here's the former treasurer of the Conservative Party to argue against it with £1.2 million in the bank, mate. Just press rewind on Global Player, but carry on.
No, here. But in regards to the pensions being included in inheritance tax, from my experience, when I see clients, and some of them have pensions in the few hundred thousands, and some of the conversations that we have is, look, I mean, do you require an income at this moment in time, yes or no? And if the answer's no, they're quite pleased to leave their pensions alone because they use it as a bit of succession planning and they pass it on to their beneficiaries, etc., etc.
Yes, I am glad you're explaining this to me, not least because I don't fully understand it. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, so prior to 2015 with pension freedoms, if you had a pension pot, let's just say for the purpose of this conversation, that pension pot was £500,000. You would then use that pension pot to buy yourself an income. That income would be a certain percentage based on what you had in your pot. So again, just for the purpose of this, let's say you bought an income at 10%. So that means that 500k pot would buy you a 50 grand a year income. That income would then last you until the day you die. The downside of that is you don't have a pot of 500k anymore. You've got the income, and if you die in 12 months' time, if you've got no spouse guarantee, that income dies with you. So the company that you bought the income off, let's just say it was Aviva, they've got your £450,000. They paid you one lot of 50k, and then the rest stays with them. With pension freedoms coming around in 2015, it gave people the option now. So whereas you used to have to buy an income with your pot, why people are leaving their pots alone now is because you can just have a pot and access it however you want. So flexible drawdown now is you've got a pot of 500k, a quarter of that is tax-free. You can take that as a lump sum, you can take that as income, tailor it to whatever level you like. And then the remaining 75% is taxable. So whatever you take from that remaining bit gets added onto your income for that tax year.
When you take it out or when you leave it in the pot?
From the age of 55 when you access it. If you don't touch it, it stays. So
it's not taxed at all. It just grows and grows and grows and grows.
That's right.
So the richer you are, the bigger the win.
That's correct. However,
let's just pause to let that point settle. It's a policy designed to ensure that the richer you are, the richer you get.
Yeah, so the more you have in there, the more that's in there. I guess I
prefer the way I phrased it. The richer you are, the richer you get.
Yeah, the more that you have in your pension, the more it grows, the more money you're going to have. You're
because of the tax decisions taken by previous government.
Yes, but I do think it's going to backfire. And the reason
what you mean that the richer you are won't mean the richer you get?
No, because you can reduce down what you've got in your pot.
So let me clarify a couple of things before you explain why it's going to backfire. Sure. It doesn't kick in until April 2027, point one.
Yeah.
Everyone, which I think would be both halves of a couple, wouldn't it, can pass on £325,000 tax-free anyway, which rises to £500,000 when passing on your main home to a direct descendant. So it's £650,000 worth of joint pension pots for the average couple gets handed on tax-free.
Yeah.
So we're talking immediately about people with pension pots in excess of £700,000 if you don't, or £650,000 if you don't include the home, or £1 million between a couple, between a retired. So that those are the estates about which we're talking. And then, of course, the tax threshold, if you're only 100 grand or 200 grand over that figure, it's going to be a relatively small amount that you pay, even though it's a bigger percentage of what you would have paid previously. So the people that you are reminding us to be concerned about are the people with over £1 million in their pension pot that they're wealthy enough not to need in order to live.
Yeah, perhaps I wouldn't say I'm concerned about them. I'm more concerned about is the impact I think Rachel thinks this will have.
Yeah, go on then, quickly, because you've had a lot of time, largely because I've interrupted so much. But give me the breakdown of why you don't like it.
Okay, well, let's just say I've got a property of £1 million and I've got £500,000 pension pot. Before this came in, I would have said, well, it doesn't matter because I can pass it all on tax-free. But now I'll get taxed 40% on my 500k. So what I would do, instead of keeping that as a flexible pot, which I'll get taxed on, I'll just now buy an income, which I would have done before. That'll eliminate my pot entirely, and I can get a guarantee on that income, which means my wife will also get that guaranteed income if I was to die. I can add
But the income will be taxed.
It will, but if you die early, the whole pot's gone to the company, and you won't get any inheritance tax on the pot. So if I had a 500k pot,
okay, so you could close that down, but I fully accept that they haven't. But the Treasury is better off than it would have been, and the company that ends up with the pot, which I don't like the sound of, that sounds unfair. They'll also be paying tax on all of their income as well.
Yeah, but
so for the Treasury, everything you've said is win-win for the Treasury, but possibly not for your clients.
No, actually, for the clients, it doesn't make too much difference. I think it'll stop people keeping the pension in their estate. I think they'll take it out of it by buying an income.
And if they are lucky enough to have a financial advisor as across the facts as you, that is what you will be advising them to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm there to make sure.
How many of your clients? What proportion of your clients have got like a cool £1 million? You're not far from the Black Country either, so I might know some of them.
I'm not too far.
They're considerably richer than Yao, but they've got. Because most people listening to this program, as you well know, Jan, their mind is going to boggle at the idea of having £1 million clear that you just don't need.
No, sure, I appreciate that. I do appreciate that, and I would like to say, I mean, a lot of my clients are making £20 a month, £50 a month pension contributions. It's not just, ultra or
and they're golden. They're not touched at all by any of this.
No, they need to be. Yeah, well, actually, they benefit if they've got a job where they're getting paid a little bit more. Brilliant.
They're going to come out of this better off than they went in. But the people with £650,000 in cash or £1 million in cash plus assets, they are the ones that are going to come out paying more to the NHS, if we put it like that, paying more for the rebuilding of schools, paying more to raise the wages of the poorest paid people in the, well, no, because that comes out of the employers, paying more for the hospitals, paying more for the schools, paying more for the police, paying more for the army. That will come from them. The people with the most.
I really do hope so, James, but I really hope what doesn't happen is people just start to reducing down their pots because they think, well, hang on, if I'm going to benefit from it, I'll just take the guaranteed income. And if I live 25 years, happy days. And instead of keeping it in their estate, which they've always done now, because there's a benefit to do so.
We may need a retweaking of the inheritance tax next budget in order to deal with some of the problems that you have explained and which I have mostly understood. But that is a credit to why people like you exist. If everyone understood it immediately and easily, we wouldn't need financial advisors. Thank you, Jan. Take care, mate. Give my love to the Black Country.
James O'Brien on LBC.
49 is the time. I do actually disagree with this. I cling manically to that mantra, which I've never actually said before. I've never worked it out before. There's nothing wrong with wealth. Inequality is the problem. And in order to fix one, you need to reduce the other. So when you write, that was nothing but an education in tax avoidance from a financial advisor, I don't think that you are being entirely fair. As long as it is entirely within the law and entirely within the borders of this country, then I think that is something that many people will pay for, that kind of advice. They will pay for. For the record, I don't at the moment, but I can imagine circumstances in which I would. Can I? Doesn't matter, because that's what they are there for. Linda, I think, speaks for many of you when she says, thank God for every day that you are on LBC, James. And a few of you complaining I interrupted the last fella too much. I got more complaints than usual, which is why I've noticed. To which I interrupt largely when I don't understand something. So if you are cleverer than me and you could understand it without the clarification and without the explanation, then your IQ is high enough to ring into the programme. But I needed to clarify and question on a couple of points in order to fully understand the points that Jan was making. So I shall take that criticism under advisement. 10 to 11 is the time. What do you think she's trying to do? What is she trying to do? I know this is a weird question to ask on budget morning, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination going to be dismissing people who are ringing in with more specific detail like Jan. But what I am interested in as a taxpayer and a citizen and someone who thinks that the country needs epic investment in the NHS, it needs epic investment in our schools, it needs pay rises for the lowest paid people in the country. What do you think she's trying to do? What was this designed to do? Which one way into answering that question might be, why are billionaire former treasurers of the Tory party so spooked and so angry about this? What is it that she's trying to do that they're so furious about? Because one thing you can be absolutely certain of, if you're a billionaire, you're going to be okay. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Steve is in Barnham in East Yorkshire. You're nowhere near the A19, are you, Steve?
No, I aren't, James.
I've spent all week trying to find someone who's near the A19, but it's only Thursday. What made you pick up the phone today, mate?
Well, James, I didn't get to sleep last night. I don't think my farmers would. They can't believe what happened to us, and to think that this government is so incompetent as not to understand our industry means the incompetence of the way they're going to govern the country. Here goes then.
Go on.
So the average farmer, to make a decent living, you need at least 300 acres. At least 300 acres. And for any farmer out there listening, please, I have to generalise, so just take it as it is. So the tax bill on that would be £200,000. And as you said, you get 10 years to pay it, £20,000 a year. But in general, James, a generation is 25 years, okay? So that will be £8,000 a year.
You're not passing it on every 25 years, though.
No, you're passing it on
because your farmers are family. So it's only when. And remember, if you pass it on 7 years before you die, none of this.
Doesn't always happen, James.
None of this applies. No. I know. Again, I'm going to be accused of interrupting people, but it is exactly the same as all other businesses or what's being introduced. Up until now, you've had a massive exemption compared to, for example, the bloke up the road with a factory, or the bloke.
Have you heard of divorce, James?
Pardon?
Heard of divorce?
I have heard of divorce, but business people get divorced as well. And they have to split, and they have to split their assets as well. But I don't want to argue with you. I don't want to argue with you. I really don't. I want to hear your complaint.
Okay,
but I need to put in some detail. Like, for example,
that's okay, James, and I won't miss anything out for you.
So you've already missed out the fact that you can transfer the asset 7 years before you die to avoid inheritance tax.
Yeah, but as the tax laws have been at the moment, we've been able to pass it on at death with no inheritance.
Yes, exactly. You've had an exemption.
Exactly. So we've left it all the way through because the worries about the younger generation getting divorced and the farm being split up that way. And only 6 miles away from here, I know a friend of mine who hanged himself because of that situation. His farm was passed to him.
Well, I can't respond to that with anything but sympathy. But except I suppose to point out that lots of people in businesses that are susceptible to inheritance tax have also taken their lives over the years for complicated and very personal reasons. So, as I say, nothing but sympathy in the context of explaining the detail of what you're cross about. I possibly not massively helpful because
Here
now.
We go, James.
Carry on then.
Person.
So why should you get an exemption that the bloke over the road with a factory doesn't get?
I have to tell you that we don't get the kind of money you think we do. To put it in plain terms, we as a cereal farmer, the return we get is the same as if somebody came into your office today and said, James, you like to be a radio presenter? Everybody's wage in the UK as a radio presenter you will now take 35% of what you took. You're only going to take 35% today, based on 84 values, inflation taking it up to today. You're only going to take out 35% of your wage. That's what we get, James. In 1984,
I don't understand what you're telling me. I do apologise.
James,
yes.
In 1984, James, wheat was £140 a tonne.
Right.
This August, it was 180. It's got to 190 now. It should be 200.
But again, Steve, almost every. I mean, in 1984. a bit later than that, actually. Say 1999, a journalist starting on a gossip column on a newspaper could have been earning 40 grand. Now they'll earn 20.
But James,
the journalists aren't claiming an exemption on inheritance tax.
Here we go, James.
All right, I am listening, Steve, but you understand I have to respond.
We diversify to make a living.
Yes. Well, we all do. We do podcasts.
What kind of a living do you think we make, James, on 300 acres? What kind of return?
Well, again, that's an unhelpful question. I heard a brilliant bloke James. on... Do you listen to the Radio 4 farming programme?
Yeah.
There was a bloke on this week who has a place in the... was it in Shropshire or Herefordshire? Somewhere on that side of the Midlands, talking about his pumpkin plot, how now a much smaller fraction of what they do is actual farming. They've got some arable, they've got some livestock, but they've diversified so much that the farm has become the sort of point of interest for the massive numbers of members of the public that come to visit the farm. So I can't answer a question like yours because your farm is obviously very different from his. He's doing really, really well. And I'm sorry that you're not.
Everybody's farm is different. No, be careful, James. I have a caravan site.
Oh.
The farm doesn't make any money.
Oh.
Hardly any money. Here we go, James. Spring corn this year.
Yeah.
It's cost me £300 an acre to grow. Because of the weather.
I sense that you're cross with me. I'm delighted that you've got a caravan site and a good, healthy income across lots of different things.
All right, you want to know why we shouldn't why we shouldn't have the inheritance tax.
And I want to know why you deserve an exemption that the bloke who only has a caravan site wouldn't get.
The caravan site doesn't get it. He doesn't get an exemption. He pays inheritance tax.
That's what I said. Yeah. Why should he pay that? Because he's only got a caravan site for which he needs quite a lot of land. So why should he not get an exemption while you do?
I don't get an exemption with a caravan
on the
site.
farm.
I haven't much land, but the farm
is
excessively. The value is £10,000 or £12,000 an acre.
Well, it depends what you do with it. If you turn it into a caravan site, the value changes.
Massively, it increases, but you can't.
So this is the question that we need to answer, and maybe that you've got. I need to ask the question. All right, why does your business deserve an exemption on inheritance tax when every other family business in the country doesn't get one? That's all I want to know.
Because the cost to us to farm is way above the value. The taxman has levied these tax exemptions, and it's made the price of land go up. And then we can get back to Mr. Dyson for you. And so he's bought 40,000 acres. Yeah,
I'm going to have to hit you again with the same question. Why should your family business... Because I think I can answer this.
We can't afford it year after,
but nor can lots of other family businesses. Lots of other family businesses can't afford it because of things like divorce, as you reminded me. So why does your family business... Because I think I can answer this. I think this is where Labour have got it wrong.
We just can't afford it, James.
Well, no, but lots of people can tell me that. No one thinks they can afford their tax bill. I think that food production and the wider societal value of a farm is one of the great intangibles that Rachel Reeves has ignored. I think that the job that you do does actually deserve some form of exemption because it provides something that you can't measure on a balance sheet to the country, whether it is environmental or whether it is cultural, whether it is social or whether it is the advancement of food security. So that is what, if I'd rung you and you'd been badgering me to answer that question, that's what I would have said.
You're just winding me up, James. Aren't you, James? We've been down here before, haven't we?
I don't remember if we have or not.
We have, James.
Don't tell me you're a Brexiter.
No, you said that before. And I said no.
Good. Well, you see what I said though. So use Global Player, press rewind, and then ring someone else. And when they say, "Why do you deserve a special?" hit them with all the things that I just said. The problem is the money. What's yours worth? Like ballpark. I don't want to embarrass you, but what roughly is the whole estate worth?
3.5
million quid, and people whose estate is worth £350,000 are eligible for inheritance tax, and you're not. Do you see?
325.
No, they wouldn't be eligible for it.
Plus, if it's passed, they don't have any inheritance tax up to 325.
That's what I just said. They'll be paying. I know. They'll be paying inheritance tax on the 25 grand above.
No, if you pass a house across.
Yeah, the numbers are right. I think you've misunderstood me. The point is that people who have an estate, an estate that's worth a fraction of yours, they will be paying inheritance tax, and you will not. or you were not?
We can't afford to, James.
Yeah, but you see the point, though.
We can't afford to, James.
No, but you can't just keep saying that. Is it fair that person over there with an estate worth a tenth of yours pays inheritance tax on their estate and you don't?
Is it fair that we subsidise the price of food for all the public?
No, you see, that's the thing. Life's not fair. You look after yourself, Steve.
All right, James.
All right, and we'll talk again. And I hope you feel it was worth ringing in. And I do have some sympathy for your position.
Oh, I need to tell you something, James.
But I'm not going to have sympathy for the farmers who say things like Jeremy Clarkson said, "Oh, I've only bought a farm so that I don't have to pay death duties," or as you've alluded to, James Dyson is. So those people are doing you no favours at all.
What irritates me, James, is that the money that we would have to pay if the situation arises is going into the public sector. I was in a surgery yesterday. I go to see a consultant.
Yes, I'm sorry.
3 times a year.
Yeah.
3 times a year. No, it's okay, James. There are 2 consultants, 6 nurses and a receptionist. 1 consultant yesterday, 6 nurses and a receptionist. Done it for 7 years. 6 nurses, 1 receptionist.
Yeah.
But you only need 2 nurses, James. Oh. I've done that for 7 years.
Okay.
A nurse,
I don't know if many people listening to this will think that we've got too many nurses in the NHS, Steve.
James, there is James.
Steve,
James,
I'm listening to you.
A nurse administrator came to me at the weekend, a hospital administrator on £60,000 a year.
Right.
She's retiring at 55 in 2 years' time. She's taking home £100,000 golden handshake, £25,000.
This is the politics
pension.
Of envy, isn't it, Steve?
No, it isn't, James. We'd like some levelling, please.
All right.
You could level people up.
Okay. So how much is your estate worth again? $3.5 million?
I'll have to sell it to get that, James.
And how much is she getting again? What's her golden handshake again?
Every year, £100,000.
Okay. And what's your estate worth again?
I don't get £60,000, James.
No, but her pension, her payoff is a reward for all the work that she's done over the years. And what's your estate worth again as a reward for all the work you've done over the years?
I haven't sold it, James. I've got family to pass it down to keep producing food.
Which is why you've got 35 times more than she has. That's the way the system is structured. In the private sector, the rewards are much higher. But to end up resenting the rewards that a nurse administrator gets in the public sector is not a great look, mate. All right? And I say that with love. Mind how you go. I look forward to our next conversation. It's 11:02.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Sit like you, I think. I didn't see the last conversation ending up quite where it ended up, but let's presume it's a little bit more nuanced than claiming that nurses get too much money and therefore farmers shouldn't pay inheritance tax. But it does demonstrate, perhaps, how febrile or unhelpful the conversation can become when you get too involved in the personal circumstances of actual individuals. I will, however, run through this because I wasn't being disingenuous when I talked about farms providing a societal value that is different, for me at least, from other companies. This is why I am in favour of interventionist governments. I think governments should make a decision based, for example, if they were selling off a public asset or deciding whether or not to protect a British company. I don't think they should just go with the highest bidder. I guess Westland was the educational experience for me as an A-level student in that field. I also, and I think I've mentioned this to you a few times, I also got told something, and I've never bothered to check whether it's true or not because I don't want it not to be true. I like to cling to it, and I think Steve would like this. Up in East Yorkshire, in Switzerland, when I was a child, I was told, and I can't remember why I was told this, it might have been in geography class, that farmers are paid not to cut down hedges. Yep, I just let that pause there so that you could go, huh? And the reason for that is fairly obvious when you actually stop to think about it. And this is before we were very eco-conscious and aware of eco-diversity and the importance of having, pollinators and all that kind. Although probably farmers were aware of that. The rest of us may not have been. But it was also because the government considered it to be a priority worthy of protection. The view that they considered the pleasantness of the land to be a priority worthy of protection, a national attribute, if you like, worthy of protection. And I do see farms as fitting into elements of that, even as it becomes hard to sustain the idea when they are, mega industrial complexes. But there is something about particularly food production that probably does deserve to be treated differently from the bloke round the corner with a widget factory. That's all. And of course it still is. So let me run through what I think is actually going to happen with the reforms to the agricultural property relief from inheritance tax. So until yesterday, farmland and buildings of any size could be passed on to descendants entirely free of any IHT liability, any inheritance tax liability. When you consider that land is an asset whose value generally goes up, so if Steve's farm's worth £3.5 million this year, it wasn't worth that 20 years ago, or indeed in 1984, when the price of wheat was much lower than it was now. He's probably made more money from the appreciation of assets than he has, like we all have if we own property, than from almost anything else. Inflation alone might see to that. So when you consider that land is an asset whose value generally goes up, that increase in value is not taxed, unlike all other assets where capital gains tax would kick in. That would exclude your primary residence. What Rachel Reeves did yesterday was put a cap on how much can be passed on from a farmer to a farmer tax-free. And the cap was £1 million. So you get to pass on £1 million tax-free. Add on to that, you get the £1 million worth of house that a couple have and a surviving spouse. So it's a £2 million farm can still be passed on without any inheritance tax liability, right? The Treasury, and I'm very grateful to Miles King, a conservationist and nature blogger, for explaining this in detail. The Treasury published yesterday a table showing the kind of estates and the number of estates where APR, which is agricultural property relief, was claimed. And in the most recent year, the figures show that the relevant band would be £1 million to £2.5 million. The median is £1.47 million, so they wouldn't apply. So most farms would not be hit by this change. 1,730 farms claimed it in that last year available. 200 to 250 of them, so a tiny proportion of the number of farms eligible for the calculation, would end up having to pay some inheritance tax. That works out as between 12 and 14% of farms. And again, to speak to the idea that you need to have a certain acreage in order to make any money, well, in terms of financial value, 86 to 88% of farms that were subject to the agricultural property relief in the figures for the last available year, 86 to 88% of those farms would not be hit by the new rules. There would be no inheritance tax. This is why I interrupt people. So I wasn't sure how much of this Steve did or did not understand. So maybe I should have waited. But then it sounds like I'm doing esprit de scalier and kind of, coming back at him when he's gone. So 86 to 88% of farms will not be affected by this. The bulk of the new liabilities will fall on the very, very large farms and estates, not the family farms, but no, bulk. The bulk. So there will be some in precisely the circumstances that Steve was describing, albeit that of the £3.5 million his estate is worth, only £1.5 million of that would be eligible for the inheritance tax. So, and even those farms still get a tax break relative to all other estates. This is what the point I was trying to make with regard to the bloke who's only got a caravan site and doesn't have an actual farm. So in the context of firms or estates that are not large farms, they still get a break. They still have APR, agricultural property relief, being charged at a relative fraction of what inheritance tax would be. I think it's 20%. So they get charged 20% APR as opposed to 40% inheritance tax. And unlike other estates, they can pay that inheritance tax over a 10-year period. So you always know if someone's quoting Jeremy Clarkson in a news story that they are doing it for disingenuous reasons. So these figures are really important. I'll tweet this thread in a moment. And then, of course, it's worth considering that, and part of this is a little brutal, particularly given what Steve told us about one of his neighbours, because what a lot of the number crunching fails to establish is, of course, that this isn't going to be an annual event. People don't die every year. Farmers don't die every year. It doesn't get passed on every year, but it is an important part of the calculation. The value of farmland has roughly doubled since 1986. When APR was brought in. So albeit that the price of crops has gone down, the actual asset has doubled in value, regardless of what the farmer has done, even if he's left it fallow. And so there's a 20% tax on that value, that increase, for estates worth over £2 million. So even with my concern for societal value, I don't know that this is actually a mistake. But I don't want to fall out with Steve. I certainly don't want to upset all the farmers, because that would make me Alan Partridge. Did we find that clip? Do you remember this? What happened to Alan Partridge? I have to be careful not to enable history to repeat itself. So I don't think we've gone that far when it comes to alienating the entire farming community of the country. But in my defence, I would say I grew up on a farm. Did you know that? Did you know that? I mean, we didn't farm it. Because the old farmhouse had been turned into several family homes. But I grew up on a farm. So, the fields at the bottom of my garden, I knew the farmer by name. I went to school with a lot of farmers in Chaddesley Corbett in Worcestershire, if you want to look it up. It's farmland central. I could still name off the top of my head 10 farmers within a sort of 20-mile radius of the Talbot pub in the middle of Chaddesley Corbett. So I get it, all right? I do get it, which is why I thought crunching those numbers was important. Capital taxes, if you like. And you don't want to, as Miranda points out, you don't want to let conversations like this get oulesified. You don't want to let liars and idiots dominate the conversation to the enragement of everybody, when in fact the facts are nothing like what they are reported. So there it is. I'm just going to ring Cliff Thorburn.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 18 minutes after 11 and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where I haven't alienated all the farmers, but I have tweeted that thread, that very helpful thread, explaining why perhaps Jeremy Clarkson's media profile and the success of his splendid farming programme being what it is, he may not be the most reliable source to go to when analysing the impact of what Rachel Reeves announced yesterday with regards to farmers and inheritance taxes. In fact, I think we'd be better off looking at what James Dyson has been up to in Somerset to get an idea of where Rachel Reeves' motivation may be more helpfully directed. But speaking of Rachel Reeves' motivation, I'm haunted by that. I'm haunted by old Steve there having a crack at a nurse at the end of his phone, and it just seemed to speak to so much of what we discussed together, didn't it, on the programme? So a farmer is unhappy about having to pay inheritance tax on less than a half of the estate that he will pass on when he dies. And in order to demonstrate how unfair that is, he complained about a nurse with a pension. I don't know how they've done that. I know we're better than this. I said to you some time ago, if they can turn you against nurses and teachers and doctors, they can turn you against anybody. But isn't it weird that the people who have turned us against nurses, doctors and teachers are today telling us to worry about the farmers? And you know why? Because the farmer, in this case, Steve, has got £3.5 million worth of estate. So of course wealth is going to use its power to persuade non-wealth to defend the interests of wealth. But to hear a lovely bloke like that end up trying to articulate his grievance by complaining about a nurse with a pension, a nurse who is in receipt of a pension because of the work that she's done for her entire working life. Man alive. 20 minutes after 11 is the time. And so what is she doing? What is Rachel Reeves doing to the country? Okay, we won't know the answer to that question for years. But what is she trying to do? What is the ideology behind this budget? Okay, 0345 6060 973. Mystery Hour on the way at 12. But what is the ideology? in terms of, the tension, the historic tension between wealth and workforce. Peter Mandelson's comments about being supremely comfortable with enormous wealth. My comments about wealth not being a problem, inequality is. The idea that there's something negative about an announcement of 3 million, the 3 million lowest paid people in the country, getting a modest pay rise, a single figure percentage pay rise. And then you turn on your radio and find a man with £1.2 billion in the bank complaining that we can't afford it. And the country is absolutely crackers. And Rachel Reeves has written a prescription for some of that madness. What's the prescription? What is she trying to do? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. I want to hear it. I really do. I'm not letting them off the hook with regard to Brexit. We're not having that conversation today, David. Tim's in Belfast. Tim, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James.
Hello, Tim.
I don't know anything about farming, but...
well, that makes two of us.
Many, many years ago, Margaret Thatcher announced that there was no such thing as society, and that was an individualism ideology that we've lived under really ever since. And I think that what Rachel Reeves and the current Labour government did yesterday was try and recalibrate that so that we actually do have a society. And we need to live in a society. So when you look at the press and they're talking about who is worse off under the budget, nobody is worse off. If we have a better health service, a better education system, a better infrastructure, if people are paid better, nobody is worse off in this country today than they were yesterday. There are people who are individually having to contribute more to the country. But if you take the health service and what has happened over the last 14 years, the ideology pushed people to need to buy health insurance because the system was so broken and they were fearful of their health that they needed to actually pay for health insurance. A decent health service that, like we used to have, meant that private health was for the very wealthy and insurance was not a requirement. So if you actually start to invest in a health service that works, the ordinary people, including me, don't have to pay for health insurance. They get their health on the NHS, which they have contributed to through their working lives. So I believe... But
you heard the caller at just 24 short minutes ago. 10 minutes if you knock off my last monologue. Literally complaining about having to pay inheritance tax on less than half of his farming estate and using the fact that we've got too many nurses and they get paid too much. So, yep. I mean, you speak as if it's self-evident what you say, and I find it self-evident, but, Steve's an intelligent man, a successful business person, and he thinks that the NHS doesn't need more money.
Yeah, but we have lived with years, even longer than the Tory government, going back many, many years of this promotion of the idea that individual wealth is the goal for everybody, that to participate in society somehow or other is a bad thing, that the society itself is a bad thing. And that, as I say, it started with Thatcher. And we need to recalibrate not just the actuality of it, but the understanding.
I'm going to have to do something really annoying. I didn't interrupt you when you said that thing about Thatcher. And I didn't interrupt you because I've been, I think, fairly criticised today for interrupting a bit too much. But it is a little bit more nuanced than you allow. She did go on to say, it was an interview with Woman's Own, she did go on to say there are only people. What she meant, there isn't a kind of abstract thing called society that miraculously produces money or policy. People do that. So I think, were she alive today, and it is Halloween, were she alive today, she would probably explained that she meant society only exists insofar as it is a congregation or a community of people. But so I didn't interrupt.
Well, I would argue with her based on her own ideology.
You can, but I'm now getting criticised for not interrupting you. Do you see the crosses I bear, Tim, on your behalf? Yes, it's outrageous.
But when you look at the ideology of monetarism and what she promoted, which was with the sale of shares, with all of that, it was all about individuals. It was all about individual wealth. And the idea was, and that whole individuality and libertarianism has continued on for the last
fair
40
enough.
years.
So that's what Rachel Reeves is trying to do, is a recalibration of social priority, political priority from get rid of all the rules and try and persuade the people that they'll benefit as a result, to we need rules, and also one of the rules is if you're making a ton of money in this country, you need to give more of it back.
Yeah, we need a society. We need to contribute to each other. We can't just look at ourselves as individuals. I mean, I benefited hugely from the health service. In fact, I probably wouldn't be here if I hadn't had the health service. And I think that's what we need. We don't need people to be pushed into those. I mean, we were looking at a more and more divided society, more individualistic, that those who could afford health could have health, and those that couldn't were having to suffer. And so the Times today said that there's going to be a limit on the pay rises that people can expect. Well, people don't need as much if the society works. People don't need as much individual wealth if they don't have to pay for health insurance, and they don't have to pay for private education, and they don't have to pay for all of those added value things that you think that the Tories looked so fondly upon and thought that with a bit of a push everyone could afford.
Social capital. You're describing social capital, aren't you?
100%.
And it's
100%.
something that has been almost squeezed entirely out of the conversation in recent years. You couldn't have shut down Sure Start centres without ignoring the importance and the existence of social capital. And the less actual capital you have, the more important social capital becomes. Most obviously, I suppose, social housing. So you might not own your home, but you've got a nice home because it's social capital. It belongs to society. And that's where your objection to Margaret Thatcher kicks in. How can anything belong to something that doesn't exist?
Yeah. And the other side of just the final part of that is that in basic Keynesian economics, the more money in the economy, the more the economy grows. So tax doesn't just go into the Treasury and sit there. It's spent. It's used to employ people. It's used to invest. It's used to buy things. And when you look at, there's £570 billion offshore from British people. If you bring some of that money back into the economy, then it actually helps the growth of the economy. What certainly doesn't help it is putting it offshore or putting it into shares or putting it into somewhere where it's the only reason to have the money is to make more money. If you spend the money through taxation, because people forget this, the money is not just being taxed and brought into a big bank and left there. It's being spent. And the reason the $22 billion in the health service will be spent. People will then take that money. It's very basic. People will take their earnings, and because they're lower paid, they will spend more of it because they can't afford to save it in the same way that those, like your previous farmer who's got all of his money and et cetera, he can afford to not sell his property until he chooses to. There's a lot of people out there who will spend whatever money they earn pretty much because they have to live.
Yes.
And that contribution...
So that's a recalibration. People who spend everything they earn have been prioritised over people who, and that's why I think Jan in Cannock was so interesting, talking about people who are wealthy beyond the wildest dreams of most people, potentially being a little bit penalised by this. But actually, if you really want to talk, it's not trickle down, is it? It's trickle everywhere. Economics.
Absolutely.
The more you spend, the better it is for the economy. The more and that's where the farm. Oh, you're very good, Tim. Thank you, because that's of course where the farm comes in, which just sits there growing in value with none of that money making its way either to the economy or to the Treasury.
No.
Until you bring in a modest enhancement of an inheritance tax, which still lags far behind what every other business owner in the country would be required to pay.
Yeah. And the final thing, James, I would just love you to do a program once on when does greed kick in? Because, ordinary people aren't greedy. And then people get wealthy.
And they do get greedy.
Somewhere there's a line whenever they just say, I don't want to pay my taxes anymore.
Yeah.
And yet that line is usually when they can really afford to pay their taxes.
Well, that's not strictly true. So, some people feel that from the very start. Some people, I mean, you see, I know we probably should pay a bit less attention to social media than we used to, not least because people who've bought blue ticks are so more prominent than they would be otherwise. But some people talk for flat rate taxes or that there shouldn't be well, you know what John Steinbeck said. There's no such thing as poverty. In Dust Bowl era America, just temporarily frustrated millionaires. So greedy people with no money are opposed to tax as well, even though they need it more than anybody does.
But there is some line that people come across that they just start to resent paying their taxes, and it's usually when they can afford to most.
I'm fascinated by greed as a concept, as you clearly are as well, but more so by the concept of enough. The people who will, because you look at Elon Musk. Is Elon Musk ever going to look himself in the mirror and go, do you know what, you've got enough now? Maybe wind it in a bit. Stop trying to get a fascist into the White House so that you can get even richer. It's never going to happen. Jeff Bezos, similarly. They thought they were defending him when they wrote about how every decision he takes is based on business. And obviously it will be bad for business if you've made an enemy of the bloke who wins the election in America next week. But I think most people have other plates spinning in their minds. For example, decency, morality, kindness, warmth, empathy, altruism, sharing, community, and, to take Tim's call to its full circle, society. Thomas Watts has your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 26 minutes to 12. Should we a little bit of Idiot's Corner? We haven't done some for a while. Simon's in London. He writes, so funny to hear wokies wetting their pants and shouting fascist. You've obviously never experienced a fascist regime, or for that matter, ever read a dictionary. Knee-jerk sixth form journalism at its finest, he writes. Somehow having managed to follow the American election without hearing the comments of Donald Trump's longest-serving White House chief of staff, John Kelly, who was asked by the New York Times last week whether or not he felt that his former boss was indeed a fascist. But you keep taking the tablets, Simon. 26 to 12 is the time. Let's go to Burniston in North Yorkshire. Peter is there. Peter, what made you pick up the phone?
Initially about farms, I have to confess, James, because
I've done that. I've dealt with it. I've closed down the whole farming conversation. The country can move on, Peter.
But it's really been listening to the show today, and I'm not saying that But the issue is farms actually are intrinsically important to our economy, but like so many things, and I think this is what Rachel Reeves was trying to target yesterday. And overall, I was really impressed with her budget.
Okay,
and the reason for that is so many become commodities during.
Oh, I'm going to get your phone line. I'm going to tweak your phone line. Well, I say I'm going to tweak your phone line. Like I'm some sort of engineer. I'm just going to pause you and move on to someone else and hope that some of my colleagues can do some magic. Expelliarmus. Henry is in Wallingford. Henry, what made you pick up the phone?
Morning, James.
Hello.
So I am sort of going back to my A-level economics. Thought of the Laffer curve. Laffer curve, I'm sure you know, James, but it's the relationship between tax, the amount you tax and the amount of income you actually get.
Is it the relation, or is it a theory of the relationship between? Just to be completely clear, it's
obviously proved to some extent. You know, if you tax everyone at 100%, you will get less revenue from
Christ,
tax.
Like Carol Vorderman's back in the room. You're absolutely right. Carry on.
Whilst I agree, you're right. It is a theory. But having said that, it is proved at some level
and widely subscribed to as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And the question is that actually has this is the new budget, has it pushed the Laffer curve up to either its peak, where you're going to be getting the most,
yes,
or has it pushed it over it, where you're actually going to be getting less? I speak to a lot of people in business, and actually, funny enough, I work with quite a lot of farmers, and a lot of them ignoring the farming thing. I think it's too nuanced for me to actually have an opinion on it.
Sure.
On there, but actually, most people that I'm speaking to are thoroughly grumpy about this budget, and
but they always are.
Well, yes, no, of course. But the question is, James, are they grumpy enough to think, actually, do you know what? I'll work 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week, on there to actually, because actually most of our money is going to the exchequer, or do they say, actually instead of investing in something,
higher earners, I mean, possibly people who run businesses will fall into a different category, but they're not going to cut down the amount they work without, of course, reducing the size of their business. But higher earners come out of this quite well. It's the bit I turn to first. So income tax thresholds are going to be unfrozen in 2028, rise in line with inflation. So and the stealth tax, as it was called, introduced by the previous government in 2021, that's how it was described, that freeze. So higher earners come out of this quite well.
Again, it depends how you define higher earners. I mean, I think that, to a lot of people...
in terms of top tax rates is the obvious way to define it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's fair. I mean, I would say that. I mean, I think the other problem is we need to move this conversation, I believe, away from the billionaires. And I know
we are. We're talking about higher earners, as in over 100 or 150 grand a year.
So how are they? Yes, okay.
So the unfreezing of the tax rates means that they will be better off. So the point at which the top rate tax kicks in is going to go up.
No, but James, you missed the point. Yes,
I haven't. Let me read you what the Times said. Income tax thresholds will be unfrozen in 2028 and rise in line with inflation, Rachel Reeves said. Extending the freeze would have hurt working people and taken more money out of their pay slips. The stealth tax introduced by the previous government in 2021 has cost taxpayers thousands, pushing more people into higher tax brackets as wages and pensions rise, but tax thresholds do not.
But James, you're saying that the money they're taking home, yes, is more. That's an indisputable fact. I completely agree with that. But when they put it into something else, then they're going to get taxed more. So overall,
no, I'm just pointing out we're not confining the conversation to billionaires, which is what you suggested a moment ago. Okay, quite the opposite, in fact.
No, fair enough. Okay, maybe I made a mistake there. I apologise.
That's quite all right.
My point is, you're right. If you earn 100,000 quid a year, you will be getting more money in your pay packet. But what you do with that money is then you get taxed more on it. For example, the pensions, blah blah, etc., etc. But the point that I'm trying to make, I don't want to go into specifics. Okay. But the point is actually going back to my original point, which is the Laffer curve. At what point do they think, actually, do you know what? I won't work. I don't know, another 5 years maybe, or whatever it might be, and I'll retire early, or I'll take something that's because actually...
And of course, when you factor in the fact that they're going to have to pay £450 more for everyone on their private jet as well, I mean, you really begin to feel the pip squeak.
Well, James, that's the thing that's really affected me about this budget, actually.
Well, you and me both. I want somebody to think about... Listen, it's a bit like Paul Daniels, the late Paul Daniels, promising to leave the country if Labour got in. They always queue up to do that. Apart from the Pimlico plumbers bloke, I'm not sure anybody ever actually has. But the idea that the tax rate now, which has been frozen since 2021... is going to go up in 2028, and therefore, or that you're going to have to pay a little bit more on your second home investments or the profits you make on your shares. The idea that that's going to make people go to work less is, respectfully, Henry, just silly.
Well, but James,
it's not even an income tax increase. But an income tax increase might make you think it's not worth work. And in fact, the Laffer curve is about income tax, so it's completely irrelevant to everything you've said.
Well, no, that's when the Laffer curve can be applied across all tax purposes. Okay, I don't know which.
No, it's tax on earnings.
Okay, on earnings, yeah. That doesn't necessarily have to be income tax, though.
Well, that's the whole point about the budget, isn't it? That she's going after unearned income versus earned income. The Laffer curve, as a suggestion of the point at which it becomes pointless working if you're already quite wealthy, is utterly irrelevant to every single thing you've said. In fact, out of charity, I shouldn't have let you talk so much.
James, do you not accept? Do you not accept?
You sound like a concern. You sound like you've been put up to this by someone from Central Office. The Laffer curve couldn't be less relevant to the conversation that we're having today. And of course, it's just a theory anyway. There's limited empirical evidence to support it, as you well know.
But James,
Henry,
it's been proven. It's proven. James.
It's not proven.
Okay, James, you're telling me.
Okay, even if it's proven, it's about income tax, which Rachel Reeves hasn't put up. Just come on, mate, take the L. Henry, take the L. Seriously, I feel like I'm punching a man when he's already on the floor in a puddle of his own blood.
I'm not on the floor, James. You're telling me that if you overtax people...
No, I'm telling you that the Laffer curve isn't what you think it is, and even if it was, it wouldn't be relevant to what Rachel Reeves did yesterday. That's not an opinion, mate, that's counting.
Okay, you're telling me, James, that the Laffer curve is only...
Here he comes again. No, I'm telling you that the idea of people stopping work because they're paying too much tax on what they get paid for working is both simultaneously ridiculous and the central thrust of the clever phrase that you deployed in the thought that it would somehow bamboozle people listening to this programme. So better luck next time. Let's go back to Yorkshire. Nothing bad ever happens in North Yorkshire. Peter, how near the A19 are you?
About 10 minutes.
Why has it been adjudged? This is it. Can we just take a moment to pause? What day is it? Thursday. It's taken me 3 shows, 1 hour and 43 minutes to find someone who can answer this question. Why has the A19 been adjudged the most beautiful road in Britain?
Oh, it's very straightforward.
Thank you.
Because it rolls up through the Vale of York, up over the industrial heartland of the north at Teesside,
yes.
and then as you go further north up in towards Northumbria and into County Durham, the skies just open up. Absolutely fabulous.
You skipped your bit out. You're near Thirsk, I think.
Yeah, we're Vale of Yorkish, but you can see up towards the moors, and you can see, going north, you look left towards the Dales.
If you build it, they will come. We finally got our A19 content.
No, stay away. Stay down there amongst all the traffic jams. Do not come up here. They think you can't park in Bedale on a Tuesday. The parking in Bedale's horrendous. It's free.
This is the content that people come for. What's the parking situation? Well, I tell you what we're doing tomorrow, the pedestrianisation of Norwich city centre. It would be a natural follow-on from alienating all the farmers. Speaking of farmers, take me back to where we were before your phone intervened.
Okay.
Yes.
We've ended up during my adult life, and I turned 70 last month, and during my adult life, I have seen more and more things become commodities.
Yes.
Okay. Property, real property, as in houses, become commodities. And now when developers build properties, people from all over the place will buy them off plan, and they will, in some cases, just sit there empty. Farms the same. And so round me, there are 3 family farms. They I can guarantee you, they're all north of £2 million in terms of their capital assets.
Sure. Yeah.
They don't make much money.
And this is the problem.
The way in which farmers make money is like one of them locally. Every so often he has a crop of houses.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's that element that they provide residential land for development, and that of course goes for a premium. Okay, but for other people, they are being driven down in terms of their price by a combination of the consumer and the supermarkets, the big buyers who food is a commodity, is purchased in bulk, it's shipped all over the place, and there's huge competition in that market. So farmers don't make a huge amount of money, the family farmers. Then you've got...
So it's quite a blunt instrument then. But also, if it's worth 2.2 million, they're only going to be paying on the £200,000 in excess of the 2 million, and they can pay it over 10 years. So I think the percentage of farms that are going to be affected is low, and the percentage of farms that are going to be profoundly affected is even lower. And it may be, when we really crunch the numbers, that the farms that will be profoundly effective are going to be the ones that actually can afford it.
You know the danger with this policy at the moment, James, and I said earlier, your program's been an education this morning about the numbers to do with this. Now, the danger with this is this issue becomes like the pasty tax in the omnishambles budget of George Osborne, in that it becomes, and particularly the taxation of charitable donations in that budget as well. And it's that people misunderstand it, and the well of opposition to it that becomes received makes it fall over.
Yeah.
Now, so what Rachel Reeves did yesterday is, she obviously listens to you, recognise there's a naked emperor, okay, and she's got a whole load of frayed material, and she's got to make that into a decent suit. And it's a big body of work that's going to take quite a while to do.
That's beautifully put, even poetic. Would it be remiss of me to establish your personal party political credentials, Peter?
Yeah, I'm a Conservative Party member.
Yeah, I know that because I'm a brilliant radio presenter, but not everybody listening does.
They'd be tearing their hair out. But the fact of the matter is that you don't get decent public services unless you're prepared to pay for them.
Yeah, I know. And we keep circling this point, don't we? I mean, on the show and in life. unless you're prepared to pay for it. So you can make all the arguments you want about Laffer curves and inefficiencies and too many managers. You're never really going to change the central truth. The best way to increase the chances of getting a improved public service is to increase public spending. And I don't think the Tory party can complain, considering that Kwasi Kwarteng is making exactly the same points. I'll say that again, because you're not going to hear this being pointed out by the people that told you he was brilliant. He is now saying Labour has inherited our messy situation and Rachel Reeves has made a decent first fist of trying to fix it. Thank you, Peter. It's, good Lord, is that the time already? Mystery Hour's 12 minutes away. It's 11:48.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Thank you. I don't always look forward to Budget Day. I told you this year, oddly, I was. And I think I know why. It is because of the thing that we've been worrying at all morning, the idea that what Rachel Reeves has done is very different from what we've been watching for the last 14 years, which has essentially been working out how to look after wealth to the exclusion of all else. I wish that wasn't true. I wish that felt hyperbolical. I never know whether it's hyperbolical or hyperbolic. And I'm not that confident saying the word hyperbolical on the radio because you might just tune in at the wrong moment. Hyperbolical? You see, I should stop now. The producer's getting worried. We might get an Ofcom complaint because people think I've used a Rudy. Oh, speaking of Ofcom complaints, guess which so-called television station has been fined £100,000 for epic and obvious impartiality? I will give you one clue. It's watched almost exclusively by people that think everyone else is biased. If you need to hear the definition of an echo chamber, it would probably be a broadcast platform popular among people who think everyone else is biased, which is actually found to be, I can't remember the last time someone got hit with a £100,000 fine for bias. Can you? A genuine question, not return. Anyway, answers on a postcard, please. 11:53 is the time. Back to the budget, back to Rachel Reeves, back to the question of what we think she is trying to do to the country. Trevor's in Sunderland. Trevor, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. First time caller.
Welcome, Trevor.
It's been a bit of a morning for yourself, isn't it?
Well, it's always like this, mate. Seriously, just a little bit more to get our teeth into today.
Yeah, you've had plenty, and I tell you something, you've really stretched the guidelines, shall we say.
What do you mean by that? I know you're just talking because you found yourself on the radio.
No. I'm trying to put it in the context. Basically, I'm an ex-miner. I used to work in one of the local collieries up here.
Okay.
And I went and done social sciences and stuff at uni. And for 30 years, I've been a guidance counsellor. And I've worked in the communities up here.
Gosh.
So I've seen the whole myriad of different highs and lows of what the communities face.
Yes.
I was one of the enemies within, Mrs. Thatcher's, which still sticks with me today.
Yes.
And it's basically the people that have got all this money floating around in their bank accounts haven't really got a concept of what society is and what's community. And I think our new government have had to do something about it because it's getting totally out of hand. And people are suffering everywhere you look. Yeah, the NHS is under the cosh. The nurses are in the cosh. I'm in a hospital now as we speak. Yeah.
Are you all right?
Oh, well, I'll get there. I'm getting a bit long in the tooth. Body's not right. Not right. But brain's okay.
I'll be the judge of that, Trevor.
No. I don't know what your BSc was in, but it might not be psychological. But never mind.
Carry on. I love what you just said.
I've got a bone to pick with. But the year 19 when we're finished anyway.
All right.
So anyway, I just think that she's actually trying to get a hold and get a grip of things, because it can't go on the way we're going on. How can you legally think that it's okay to have food banks propping up everybody everywhere when people are struggling?
And we've become so glib about it, haven't we? I think Jacob Rees-Mogg tried to describe food banks as a good thing. They were uplifting.
I can remember that comment, yeah.
Demonstrative of... So what you've just made me think of is, bizarrely, is insulation. That phrase you just used about having money in the bank. And a lot of people who've got money in the bank do not feel rich But what they possibly don't realise is how insulated they are from the realities that you describe, realities that have been deliberately, for ideological reasons, imposed upon this country over the last 14 years. And she has legislated for, well, she has prioritised people with little or no insulation over people with loads.
Yeah. She's used some of the previous government's terms like levelling it up.
Yeah.
In retrospect, when you look back,
How did they dare use that phrase? Exactly. Is it Boris Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, how many sane people would hide in a fridge when a reporter wanted to talk to them?
Yeah, well, I hear you. And promoting people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who would then tell us that food banks were a good thing. So is it going to work, though? I mean, because I think
I think we're really in a suck it and see scenario.
Yes, we are.
If we don't try it, we're never going to get to know. You know, at the end of the day, you can do. It's like when you're counselling somebody, you've always got to get them to the point where they've got to really realise they've got an issue and a problem.
You can't help them if they don't think there's something that they need help with.
Exactly. And
not wrong.
This government right now, I think they've got the mentality of that. I mean, last week Wes Sweeting was on about bottom dredging and going and writing reports and getting people. I'm actually writing a letter to him about being what I thought of the treatment I've had in hospital.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, big businesses have used bottom dredging for years to make more money, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. You're absolutely right. I can't. I mean, I'm glad you came on last in a way, because you've analysed it with such clarity and simplicity that I don't know that there's anything else to add. That's what she's done. And I would add that line about some people who've got insulation don't realise they've got insulation. And she hasn't set fire to anybody's insulation. She's just prioritised the people who haven't got any.
Yeah, and the people who have the wealth just seem to be so immune from the fact that they're struggling day to day in the communities.
And you've just done that other thing as well, because this is what they tried and failed to articulate when they talked about people who haven't got enough set aside to pay for a new boiler.
Yeah.
That's it, isn't it? So this nonsense about working people that everyone was jumping up and down on, they should have done a better job of clarifying what they meant. But this is a budget designed to rebuild from the bottom up.
James, when I graduated in '96, and went into the community, it was then that the Conservatives decided to do away with Sure Start. And when I saw the difference Sure Start had made, because I was working as an education welfare officer,
right,
to the young families and the people.
And there's been research on that in the last fortnight, which you'd have been the least surprised man in the country to read about the difference it made to the likelihood of criminality moving forward. The actual measurable percentage increase in the likelihood of falling off the straight and narrow if you didn't have access to Sure Start services.
Again, I work in youth justice as well, and there was research suggested that if a kid got a 16-year-old without falling foul of the legal system, he would be okay.
You'd be over the hump, as it were. You look after yourself, Trevor. I'm not going to pry about why you're in hospital. I'm just going to give you my very, very best wishes.
Look, you're 19, right?
Go on then, quickly, because I've got mystery out around the corner. I'm not having a debate about the best road in Britain.
The previous guy was right so far, but he didn't get down to the land of the Prince Bishops, where you know about, like Barnard Castle and places like that.
I do. It's a beautiful road. I'm glad you weren't challenging that analysis. It is. I know it's a beautiful road. I went there once to test my eyes. Or was that someone else?
James O'Brien on LBC.
When it's after 12, is the time? Gosh, it takes me by surprise sometimes, Mr. I should probably explain what it is. It's very different from the rest of the stuff that we do. In fact, it couldn't really be more different. Except for the silliness. I suppose it's quite silly sometimes, and that's probably true of most shows, most hours of most shows, even when we're ostensibly discussing quite serious stuff. I think it's important to seek the silliness. In fact, if this was a sort of schmaltzy Hallmark movie, and I was a kind of weird radio presenter having a midlife crisis and shifting from being a horrible right-wing vampire into being a touchy-feely lefty liberal do-gooder, that would probably be the catchphrase that I would use, or the slogan that I would deploy. Seek the silliness. Seek out the silliness. Just see the late Robin Williams playing that character. Or so. Sorry, I've got no idea what I'm talking about. Mystery Hour, you ring in with some questions, or a question, and other people ring in with an answer. That's all it is. Piece of cake. You can win an amazing prize, a Mystery Hour board game. I caught my 16-year-old playing the Mystery Hour board game with some of her mates last night, and I'm not going to pretend it wasn't a moment of particular joy. I resist the urge to offer to sign it for them. The game is a reward, a prize for my favourite contribution of the day. Okay, you can find the full terms and conditions at lbc.co.uk. You can find more details about the game at mysteryhour.co.uk. And that's it. I think we'll just crack on, except to take Edgar, who's in Lancashire's question. I haven't actually revealed this yet, although it turns out quite a lot of you already knew the answer. Edgar says, is it Mystery Hour that has received a £100,000 fine from Ofcom for impartiality? I'm not going to tell you yet. Well, yeah, all right. No, it's not. I'll solve that mystery first off. It is. If I gave you a clue, it is a platform popular among people who think everyone else is biased and impartial, but they are in receipt of the real news. Oh yeah, real news trademark, and they've been hit with a £100,000 fine for one of the most egregious examples of political bias in broadcasting that even I can remember. 6 minutes after 12 is the time. Vic's in Southampton. Vic, question or answer?
I've got a question, please.
Carry on, Vic.
Why are pumpkins the fruit of Halloween?
Is it a fruit?
Well, that's a different question, James, but...
Yeah, I know, but I asked it. It's a gourd. It's a gourd, isn't it? It's a gourd. That's an horrible word. Gourd, I turned into Ogden Nash now. Gourd is an horrible word, isn't it? It's...
No, I think it is a fruit because it's got seeds, isn't it?
Oh, let's not go there. We'll be here all night. Okay. Why pumpkins and Halloween? I mean, obviously you can turn them into lanterns, so it could be a bit chicken and egg, couldn't it? In a way.
Yeah, you could do that with other fruits or vegetables, I suppose.
What?
Squash.
That is a pumpkin. A pumpkin is a squash.
No.
Yeah.
This
is all gone a bit botanical.
No.
It's all gone a bit horticultural, this conversation.
It's actually not my question. It's my son's question.
Oh, well, now I'll stop messing around then and get on with it. What's your son's name?
He's Arav.
We'll try and get Arav an answer for you then. So can I change it slightly? Can you check with Arav if he's there? Can I change it slightly to why do we associate pumpkins with Halloween?
Why do we associate pumpkins with Halloween? Yeah, we're happy with that.
Is that okay? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to do it. I want to speak to the organ grinder here, Vic. We're absolutely certain that is okay.
Is that okay? You happy with that? Why are pumpkins associated with Halloween?
Yeah.
Thank you, mate. There we go. On we go. Onwards and upwards. Thank you, both of you. 8 minutes after 12 is the time. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. And there is a question on the board already. Richard is in Brighton. Richard, question or answer?
Oh, hello, James.
Oh, hello, Richard. You sound surprised.
What an honour.
You sound surprised. You did ring in, mate. We haven't ambushed you.
I know, I was. I didn't think you'd get to me. But hey, listen, I've got a question, if that's all right.
Carry on.
Well, I was having an incredibly insightful conversation with my wife yesterday, and we were talking about fingerprints being unique to every single person on this earth.
Yes, indeed.
And then I thought, but what about voices? Are these also unique, much like our fingerprints? Or is there someone out there that sounds exactly like you, and you never know? So there could be another James O'Brien talking somewhere, but he's not James O'Brien. He just sounds identical to you. So imagine being in the same room. You know, would this rip a hole in the space-time
I don't
continuum?
know that this is a mystery. Of course there are people who sound exactly like you.
But I'm saying unique like fingerprints. So, can we biologically say that there's everyone's got a unique
I saw
voice?
John Culshaw. Here you go. This is my man of the people credentials being burnished on live radio. I saw John Culshaw at the opera last night. I'm sure John Culshaw could sound exactly like me if he wanted to.
Oh, exactly, but is it exactly like you? If you were to put a machine that can measure the wavelengths of your voice, whatever it might be,
I listen. This isn't a criticism of you, Richard, but I'm very surprised you got through. In fact, now that you're surprised, now that I have heard your question, I understand why you were so surprised to get through in the first place.
You found me out, James. I'm sorry, but I do think it does still warrant an answer. because I wanted someone to tell me, actually, no, the reason why it can't be is because of X.
Okay, yeah, all right. I mean, I also, could you prove it? Could you prove that two voices were identical? All right. I mean, it's on the board. But, yeah. Speaking of the opera, it's a beautiful production of Rigoletto at the ENO, at the English National Opera. And every time I mention to you that I've been lucky enough to be invited to the opera by the ENO, I remind you that they have a special scheme that lets under 21s go free. So don't be like me and get well into your 40s before you attend your first opera. Get yourself down there. And this is a lovely introduction as well. It's got. I mean, I'm not an opera buff, and I never will be. I came to it far too late in life. But it's amazing how many classic tunes have their origins in opera. So you know that just one cornetto is O Sole Mio. You know that, right? O Sole Mio. So last night, I forget because the English National Opera do it in English, so I don't know what the Italian words would be, but we had Ta Ra Ra Bum Die. I didn't know that came from an opera. You know that he doesn't play for Chelsea, Keith. You know the that's from Rigoletto. That is. I now know. That's probably not what I should be taking away, is it? From opera. Oh, that's where Ta Ra Ra Bum Die comes from. 11 minutes after 12 is the time. Phil's in Croydon. Phil, question or answer?
Well, this is the Culture Hour with James O'Brien.
Yes, it is.
I never thought I'd ever hear you say anything like that. Right, yeah, I've got a question.
Carry on.
Cheese. Holes.
Yes.
Why?
Holes. Why do some cheeses have holes in them?
Yeah. I mean, you have a polo mint, which is obviously, largely a marketing thing.
Yeah.
And you also have sourdough.
You're asking a question about holes in cheese, and you've brought polo mints into it.
Well, yeah.
No, I love it, because you're sitting there thinking, what other foodstuffs have got holes in? And you think, donuts,
I mean,
crumpets?
Sourdough is a bit pointless.
Yes, but it might be relevant, because I know the answer to your question, and sourdough is probably more relevant than you realise. It's certainly a lot more relevant than polo mints.
Okay, go on then.
It's bubbles, isn't it? So you've got bacteria in cheese, as you know, which is, in blue cheese you've got lots of it, but in all cheese, that process of curdling and becoming cheese involves bacteria. And in some cheeses, because of the way that they're prepared, stored, manufactured, produced, the carbon dioxide bubbles grow into holes.
Yeah, so why did they introduce carbon dioxide back into the cheese?
They don't reintroduce. The bacteria produces carbon dioxide.
Oh, right, smart Alex.
It's not that smart. I mean, I don't want to be rude, but it's basic respiration. Every organism on the pretty much on the planet will give off carbon dioxide, won't they?
Well, Jacob Rees-Mogg being classic case in point.
Yes, when I say organism, obviously I'm not including anything botanical or tree-based. But yeah, also I'm veering off my what do you call it? Apparently O Sole Mio is not from an opera, so I'm embarrassing myself on every front at the moment. But anyway, the answer is carbon dioxide. So you're eating, it's in it's coming out of the bacteria that are in the milk, that are in the cheese.
Enough.
All right, round of applause for me, and that creates the holes. Thank you. I also love cheese, which reminds me, I've got Alex James coming up on full disclosure at the beginning of December. I used to come on quite a bit. Always bring some cheese with him. So if he's listening, I hope he does again. Helen's in Manchester. Helen, question or answer? Helen.
So answer for you?
Carry on.
Do you want the question or the answer first?
No, unless you've cleared the answer with the producer, you're confined only to the question.
Okay, then I will give you my question.
Carry on.
I want to know...
Yes.
I understand why it happens for an away team.
Yes.
And I understand why people do it now, because it's been going on for so long.
Yes.
But I want to know when and why footballers started running to the corner to celebrate a goal.
I think you've answered it yourself, actually. And I think you probably realise that. So explain to people who don't know why you're not asking about away teams.
I understand the away teams because the away supporters are generally sat behind one of the corners.
Yeah, well, they'll have quite often
they'll have their own section.
They will, and so you get into the habit of running to the corner. I think it's that simple, and also you can do things to the flag.
See, I don't. I just think natural reaction to scoring a goal was you would want the adulation of as many people as possible.
You would, except for the fact that 50% of the games you play, you want the adulation of your own fans, which you can only get by going to a corner flag. So you actually almost condition yourself. You program yourself.
But the other 50% of your games you're playing at home, so you are equally conditioning yourself.
No, but you're not. You're not, are you? Because you got statistically.
This is what I mean. I understand now why they do it.
Yeah.
But at some point, did home fans ever? I have visions of scoring a goal and somebody running back to the centre of the pitch.
It does happen sometimes. It's not every single goal that's scored sees them running towards the corner flag. It's possibly.
Oh no, I understand that. It just seems so common that I'm wondering, because my partner thinks it's possibly something to do with where the TV cameras are, and he thinks it's maybe when the TV cameras got involved with telly.
Oh no, all right. So maybe there is some reason for that. Why are so many goal celebrations celebrated at the corner flag? Because it does seem to be, particularly at home games, it does seem to be disproportionate.
Yes.
I like it.
I feel sorry for all those other home fans who aren't sat behind that flag.
Well, I mean, they get other advantages. And also, I wonder how many. I'm trying to think. You can run to a camera, don't they, a lot? And so maybe that is where the easy. Yeah, okay, you're on. Well, yeah, I like that question. Thank you. Who do you support?
I have two different teams. I support, for women, I support Manchester City Women, and for the men's Premier League, I support Brentford.
Do you really?
Yes.
Why do you support Brentford?
Because when I met my partner, I didn't watch men's football.
Yeah.
And he did, and he's a Liverpool fan. And all my family are United fans, so they thought I was going to start supporting United, and he wanted me to support Liverpool. All my women's football friends thought I would start supporting Manchester City men.
Yeah.
But one of the first matches of the season, Brentford were newly promoted, and they played against Liverpool, so I decided to cheer for them to annoy my boyfriend, and it ended in a 3-3 draw.
It did. I was at that game.
And later in the season, we beat Liverpool 3-0, so that just kind of put the nail in the coffin.
I was at that game, and I haven't been to many Brentford games, but I can still hear, I could hear Scousers complaining about the cost, because Brentford's my neck of the woods. I could hear Scousers complaining about the cost of a pint from 1.5 miles away. It was absolutely extraordinary. And they had chosen one of the more salubrious pubs on the Chiswick-Brentford borders, but my goodness me, were they unhappy about the price of a pint. Thank you, Helen. What a lovely answer. I like people who have two teams. I'm in danger of having three soon, largely because of Brentford being so near to my home. I can hear when they score a goal from my back garden. 17 minutes after 12 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
19 minutes after 12. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Miss Jack continues, actually. I'm getting distracted by budget stuff. That's never happened to me before in my life, and never will it happen again. Hazel is in Enfield. Hazel, question or answer?
Question. Hello.
Hello.
My question, yes. So...
Take your time, Hazel. Nobody's listening.
If the US Vice President is the person who certifies the results of the presidential election in America, who will do the certifying if Kamala Harris wins?
Oh, I presume it's the Speaker of the House, because they are next in the line of succession in American government, I think, aren't they?
Yes. You mean the Nancy Pelosi person?
It's not her anymore, is it? It's
I know.
But yes, the Nancy Pelosi person, the person who is the new Nancy Pelosi, whose name is.
I don't know.
No, I know you don't know. I'm trying to encourage some of my colleagues to do some bloody work. Mike Johnson.
Oh, okay, Mike Johnson.
I presume. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I know that if the president and the vice president both perish, then the speaker becomes the de facto head of state. Well, the head of state, I don't know why I said de facto. I'm falling into the Boris Johnson trap of thinking that Latin makes me sound clever. I think it's Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, but I will put it on the board for you, shall I?
Okay, yes, thank you.
I think it's the word ratify.
Is it ratify?
I don't know, I'm asking you.
I thought it was certify. Certify, ratify.
Certify, ratify. It's on the. Thank you. I like that, Hazel. Fingers crossed, eh? 21 after 12 is the time. Paul is in New Southgate. Paul, question or answer?
Hello, there is the question, and you've just used two of the words in the question in the last 2 minutes. It is yesterday's budget. How come all budgets tend to be presided over by the Deputy Speaker and not the Speaker?
Ah, that's interesting. Is it because he's just done a shift? Do they always clock off? No, I'm not even joking. Maybe they always clock off at that time every day. Finish at 1 o'clock. Finish at 12:30. Can't be that, can it?
I don't know. There'll be a constitutional member.
Works for me.
Listening
maybe he's on the same sort of shift pattern that I'm on, Paul. Deputy Speaker on Budget Day. Why is it always the Deputy Speaker who presides over the budget?
Terrific. Have a good day.
No, you too. I'll try and get you an answer. Mary is in Glasgow. Mary, question or answer?
Hi, James. It's a question.
Carry on.
So it's around slugs.
I hate them. I really, really hate. Do you know what I hate most about them?
Sorry.
Not even eating my radishes, but the way in which I feel bad. If I want to get, I haven't got that part of my personality that would allow me to put them all in a big tin and set fire to it or something like that. So I'm not going to tell you what I do with them because I'll have Neighbourhood Watch on my case. But anyway, carry on. Slugs.
Nice dark start for that one. So it could be other types of insects that can't fly and particularly slow. But the question is, how do slugs get to the top of mountains? And context for this is my partner and I do a lot of Munro hiking in Scotland, and that's mountains that are over 900 metres or so. And over the summer, we saw a lot of slugs on the path and then actually at the summit. So how on earth do they get there?
How do they get anywhere?
Well, that's fair. That's fair. But if they're on flat ground, I don't know, they're just there and about. But actually going up the hill...
I would think that slugs and snails are better equipped to go uphill than anything else, than we are. They're stuck. They're literally stuck to the ground.
But... So my theory behind it is...
Go on. This isn't theory hour, Mary.
It should be.
Every other hour. 14 theory hours every week. But go on.
So they could theoretically, first slug sets off, covers X amount of ground, it dies, but it's reproduced, and then slug offspring heads up on the second part of the journey, make a little bit more headway. But I'm just not really sure if that makes sense because of the conditions and altitude and wind and all that kind of stuff. Or if they're actually carried up and dropped off for ecological purposes or whatever it may be. But yeah, we couldn't figure it out when we were thinking. I haven't Googled.
Yeah. I don't think, and I haven't done this for a very long time, promise not to hate me, I don't think I can put this through. I think it's so flipping obvious. Keith wanted me to do a joke. Ask the question again.
Ask the question. How do slugs get to the top of Munros?
Slowly.
How do slugs get to the top of Munros?
No, the answer is slowly.
Oh, no, stop it. Stop it immediately.
Only on live radio. What a moment of absolute beauty. All right, because you've been so fantastic, I'm going to have to leave it. But the answer is the same way they get anywhere, isn't it, when you stop and think about it?
Yeah, but when they're on the flat ground...
No, you can't keep clinging to this. You sound like a Brexiter. They're stuck to the ground. They just go up a slope.
Oh, but the conditions. How are they surviving up there?
No, it's not. This is awful. You're like a politician. All right, how do slugs get to the top of mountains? Yeah?
Yeah.
You're on. Slowly. Sam's in Twickenham. Sam, question or answer?
Hello, James. I'm hoping I have an answer for your pumpkins question.
Oh, good. Carry on.
So... I think it goes back to an Irish tradition, actually.
Oh, yes. Turnips.
To do with the turnips. So it was about, it's All Hallows Eve.
Yes.
And there's a bloke called Stingy Jack who plays a trick on the devil.
Stingy Jack?
Stingy Jack, yes, because
very made up.
It is.
Yeah, fair enough. Carry on. In the sense that everything is.
Yeah. It's a nickname.
I meant today. I didn't mean back in the 16th century Wexford. No, go on then.
But yeah, he was given this name because he refused to pay the devil back and he was punished for it. And the jack-o'-lanterns, which are named after him, were originally turnips. But when Irish immigrants went over to America, the seasonal vegetable there were pumpkins.
What a beautiful
So they just
answer.
used a different vegetable.
This is, qualifications?
So I'm a primary school teacher, and the kids were asking about it last year, so we looked it up.
That's right. It's the perfect qualification, that, isn't it? So what you have is a generation of school children growing up in Twickenham who will know the answer to this question, while most people don't, up to and including almost all of our listeners.
I hope so. I hope my information has been remembered.
So the full title, to give the fella his full title, it would be Stingy Jack-o'-lantern.
I guess. I think they're lanterns for Jack to sort of ward him off.
Stingy Jack-o'-lantern. Stingy Jack. Yeah, oh, okay. All right.
Jack of the Lantern.
Stingy Jack of the Lantern.
It's
the same Jack. It's the same Jack. Jack-o'-lantern and Stingy Jack is the same Jack. Isn't it? Stingy Jack. Is there a song? Do you know if there's a song? Is there a song of Stingy Jack? Like the Ballad of Stingy Jack?
I'm sure there's a beautiful Irish song.
You'd hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so.
You'd hope so. I love that. That's a beautiful answer to a really good question. And you and Vic joining forces to make radio magic almost as delightful as the magic that Mary and I just made together entirely accidentally a moment ago. Round of applause for Sam. Love that. Slowly. Rebecca's in Woodford Green. Rebecca, question or answer?
It's a question, please.
Carry on, Rebecca.
Okay, right. So my daughter asked me this, and I said, it's the perfect one to put to LBC.
Oh, good stuff.
So why can a brain remember that it's forgot something, but not remember what it's forgot?
Are you a philosopher? Is your daughter a philosopher? I mean, this is the sort of thing that used to befuddle Aristotle himself. This kind of question. You've got a genius on your hands there. I think I know the answer.
Go on.
Well, because you're reaching for something that you know exists, right? You're trying to remember a name or you're trying to remember a number, so you know that it exists, but you can't remember what it is.
Yeah, but it's like, when like they say, take your steps back. So if you go into a room and you forgot what you went into that room for, but then you come back, then it says retrace your steps. Then you go back into the room that you just left.
Yeah.
Then you do remember.
Yeah, but there's a hole in your brain, isn't there? There's a hole in your...
Oh, you're telling me I've got a hole in my brain?
No, that sounds a bit wrong. Also, I'm not allowed to do medical diagnosis on the radio. There's a hole in... You have a memory hole. A bit like polo mince and cheese. You have a memory hole, and you know the hole exists. So what you're doing when you can't remember what it is you want to remember, you're looking at the hole, right? Mentally speaking. But the hole is there. It's just empty. It's an empty hole. And then if you're lucky, something might move into the hole and you remember what it was that you were looking for in your memory hole in the first place.
Yeah, but where's that thing that comes from that it remembers that I forgot?
Well, because it's there somewhere. I
just don't understand it.
It's there because you knew it once, so you can know it again.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, thank you for telling me that I have a hole in my brain.
That's quite...
I'll never call back into you again.
It's a metaphorical hole. It's a metaphorical hole. It's not an actual hole. How does the human brain remember that you forgot something but not what you forgot? I don't know what. I'm going to let the producer make a creative decision independently at this point. Rebecca, do you approve or disagree? Have you watched Gladiator?
No, I haven't.
Oh. You know when Roman emperors put their thumb up or their thumb down?
Yeah.
To decide whether or not someone lives or dies?
Yeah, you're going to give me a thumb down.
No, I'm making you the thumb, mate. You're the thumb. I want you to put the thumb up or the thumb down. So thumb up?
Put it up, obviously.
Yeah, well, let's have a listen then. Is that Neville Longbottom? Oh, did you hear that, Rebecca?
You're so funny.
Has your little one been reading Harry Potter lately or watching Harry Potter?
It was my 24-year-old daughter that asked me the question.
So what? I'll say it again. Has your little one been watching Harry Potter lately or reading the Harry Potter books?
My daughter loves Harry Potter.
That's where she's got it from. That's where she's got it from. She's basically asking a question about the remember all, but she didn't want to say that because she's 24. I'll find out for you.
Thank you for answering my question.
Well, I don't know if I have. I don't even know what day it is anymore. I'm putting it on the board. Why can we remember that we can't remember something but can't remember what it is that we can't... Actually, no, it's better to use the forgot. How does the brain remember that we forgot something but can't remember what it was that we forgot? That's a hugely brilliant piece of radio production there, Eleanor. Absolutely first class. Well done. Lucinda Worsley is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12:34 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Mystery Hour continues. Questions that still need answers. That was a lovely one, wasn't it, on the pumpkins? Richard wants to know whether or not our voices are as unique as our fingerprints. Cheese and holes. Why do footballers almost always run to the corner flag to celebrate their goals? And it's not away fans. We know that why they do it at away games. Why do they do it the rest of the time? Who will ratify the new president or certify the new president, given that if it is Kamala Harris? And similarly, why does the Deputy Speaker always conduct the budget debate in the House of Commons? And Mary wants to know, I've got raised beds that are plagued by slugs. They go up a vertical wall. But Mary wants to know how slugs get up a hill. How many times could Ray's in Bexhill-on-Sea. Ray, question or answer?
Hi, James. A question, please.
Carry on, Ray.
It's a food-related one.
Oh, yes.
In France, they eat lots of frogs' legs. So, do they breed frogs specifically? And then what do they do with the rest of the body?
Oh, you're only allowed one question, unfortunately.
Oh, sorry. I thought that would be one question, but
no.
Well, what do they do then with the frog's body when they've cut the legs off?
Oh, you cheeky! Oh, you spoil sport! I knew the answer to the first bit. So the answer to the first bit is yes. They do farm them, and there's quite a lot of frog farms in China as well. Would you believe? Where I think frogs' legs are also a delicacy. But I know because I've seen them, literally driving through. A bit like that conversation we had with Steve at the end of the first hour, towards the end of the first hour, about diversifying. So farmers who farm frogs now invite members of the public in to pay a bit and have a look at all the frogs. Anyway, that's not the point. What do they do with?
I know that snails are bred because I saw that on a French cooking program.
Did you? But you'd have to, mate. They eat so many. You'd have to. You couldn't forage for them. You couldn't forage for them, could you?
No. But what they do with the rest of the body really is what I thought. They don't walk about on crutches, do they?
No. They're hopping mad. I don't know that frogs. I can't. Maybe they don't do anything with them, which is a bit brutal, isn't it? When you stop to think about it.
Yeah. Well, unless they use them for
they don't grow back
somewhere.
They probably do, don't they? To probably chuck them in a. All right, yeah. What do the French usually? But anyone who eats frog's legs, what do they do with the rest of the frog?
I've never tried them, so I don't know what they're even like. No,
tastes like chicken. Have you ever had a snail?
No, I haven't.
Snails are nice. Do you like seafood?
I do, yeah.
You'd like a snail, nice. You'd like a snail then, not garlicky actually, and hot and really good. I've got Michel Roux on Full Disclosure this week. You know the chef.
Yes, yeah.
He said something about foraging for snails when he was a kid. So he grew up on a country estate where his father was the private chef for a banker, Albert, till he was about 9, and then they opened the restaurant in Mayfair. And he would go out and find the snails that you could actually eat, which I have taken to heart. I've always, when I get a particularly big snail, I've often thought, can I eat that? And now, thanks to Michelle, I'm confident that I can. So I'll let you know how I get on, Ray.
I don't know if I'm going to hear the answer.
I'm not going to eat a frog. I'm not going to.
I'm into the garden after I finish here.
No, well, frogs. What do you do with the rest of the frogs?
Yeah, that's my question, please.
I like it. Thank you, Ray. Merci beaucoup, as they say in France. 12:38 is the time. 0345 606 0973 is the number that you need. Mike's in Lewisham. Mike, question or answer?
Afternoon, James. I've got a question for you.
Carry on, Michael.
So, I was wondering, when we're being serious or want to, I guess, get straight to the point with someone, why do we say, let's be frank?
Yeah.
I'm going to be frank with you. Like, who's Frank?
I think he's Ernest's brother.
See, I'm just wondering why, because, you sound like a straight-talking person. Why can't I say... I'm going to be James with you.
I don't know. Well, I don't know that it. I don't think it applies to someone. I say I'm going to go. This hasn't happened for a while. 2 things actually about today's Mystery Hour. I haven't put out that guarantee that you'll have at least one laugh out loud moment a week for a while, and I should have done. I mean, there's been about 6 for me today. But the other one is that there used to be a habit, a tradition, if you like, Mike, where the more tempted I was to take the mickey out of a question, the more likely it was that I would be the one that ended up looking stupid. So I'm fairly confident that the origin of the noun or adjective frank, the adjective frank to describe someone who is straight talking, is not down to someone called Frank.
Right.
Well, you sound sceptical.
I mean, yeah.
So when you think when people say
let's
be frank, they're saying let's pretend to be frank because Frank's such a straight talker.
Yeah, because it's almost as if it's referring to a person rather than a thing.
I say, I mean, history has taught me that it might be me that ends up looking silly on this one. But speaking frankly, I think it's going to be you. Because the other one is Ernest. Would you say the same about Ernest? Would you ring in and say, who was Ernest? Let's be honest.
I mean, kind of. I mean, that kind of sounds like has like an honest connotation to it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Frank. Okay, so why do we say Frank?
Yeah.
To describe someone being straight talking.
Straight to the point.
You're on?
Yeah.
No, you're on? All right. And as I say, if it's me that looks silly for suggesting it's probably not someone called Frank, I will take my medicine. And if it's you that looks silly for thinking that it was, you will take your medicine, Mike.
Well, maybe I'll take some of yours.
It could go either way. 12:40 is the time. Bill's in Maidenhead. Bill, question or answer?
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
You're very welcome.
I hope this isn't too complicated. I'll try to make it simple.
Oh, thank you.
James.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Well, you're a very smart man, but still, I've noticed I've had trouble trying to explain it to your researcher, the lovely lady at the end of the phone.
I mean, it could be a you problem, this, Bill, before we get stuck in, as opposed to a them problem. Go on, though.
Well, to be frank.
Yes, I'll be earnest.
Yeah. The question is this: why does the moon always face the Earth? Now, we know the moon goes around the Earth.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
It goes around the Earth every 28 days.
Yeah.
Right? And that means the moon has to turn once in 28 days to maintain its face looking at the Earth.
Because it rotates on its own axis while it's also orbiting the Earth.
That's right.
Yes.
And it exactly does that.
It does.
It's called the Man in the Moon because you remember before the space program, maybe you don't, but I do. I'm old enough to remember it.
Yeah.
Always a mystery as to what was behind the moon. The dark face of the moon, we called it.
Well, Pink Floyd did a whole album about it.
That's right. And so, therefore, the moon was always facing, all the way back to biblical times, it always was facing exactly the same way.
Yes.
The astronomers looked at it in detail, and they never, ever saw a different feature other than what had been in place for eons.
Yeah.
So my question is, why is it so balanced? Well, is it just luck that it turns precisely once every 28.2 days?
I don't know if it's luck, but I do know the answer to this, and very boringly, I know the answer because it's come up before.
Good.
And good. Yeah, it's the correct response. It takes exactly the same amount of time for the moon to spin on its own axis.
Yes.
As it does for the moon to complete its monthly orbit around the Earth.
Okay, there's an answer more sophisticated than that.
Well, you could talk about tidal locking would be the technical phrase to use at this point. But the physics of it is that it's turning on its axis as it goes around the Earth, so that it never presents a. I don't know why I'm miming this for you at the moment, Bill. We're on the radio.
You're right,
and so it never presents a different face to Earth. You're looking from Earth.
It's because it's always in balance.
Yeah,
like
because it takes exactly the same time to complete one rotation as it does one orbit.
But that's because of gravity pull.
Hang on, are you ringing in to answer the question?
No, okay. I'm sorry.
What are you doing? You can't ring up questions. First, you can patronise me by saying I'll try and keep it simple for you, and then try to answer it after I've answered it successfully.
Okay.
Round of applause for me. None for Bill. None for Bill. All for me. Thank you. Rob's in Mould. Rob, question or answer?
An actual answer, please.
Carry on, Rob.
Why the Deputy Speaker presides over the budget.
Yes.
So you have the regular speaker, who is Lindsay Hoyle.
Correct.
The first senior deputy speaker is actually called the chairman of Ways and Means.
Yes.
And
yes.
the budget being a Ways and Means resolution, anything that leads to the government raising taxes or anything along those lines is always presided over by the senior deputy speaker.
Oh, beautifully done. Qualifications?
I used to work there.
Did you? As what?
I wouldn't like to say.
Oh, really? It was like that, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can't even speak now. You're just going.
There's more. If you want more detail, we can go into more detail.
No, I'm frightened now. I think you might tell me something by accident and then have to kill me.
No, not at all. All of the deputy speakers are all called something chairman of Ways and Means.
So they could all step in and do it, but the speaker can't.
Exactly. So the senior deputy is the chairman of Ways and Means. The next one is the first deputy chairman of Ways and Means. And the third one is the second deputy chairman of Ways and Means.
That's great work. Round of applause for Rob. Thank you, mate. Oh, this is a vintage mystery hour. If you're listening on the podcast, don't forget there's an entire archive of this kind of magic going on wherever you get your podcast. And it goes out on YouTube as well as part of the show proper. But remember, if you'd rather watch Mystery Hour so that you can see my ludicrous expressions and my attempts to mime the orbit of the moon and the earth and all of that kind of thing, then you can go back over. We've been putting it out on YouTube for the last year or so, I think. Certainly a while. 12:46 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
49 is the time. I happily, the programme's evolved a bit since the days when we would have done things like, oh, why is Halloween such a thing? It was never like that when I was a kid. But I'm going to read you something that I just saw on social media, actually, because I think this is really important. We complain that they spend too much time on their phones. We complain that they spend too much time in their rooms. And then when they go out and try to have fun with their friends, we tell them that they're too old. So remember that teenagers are still children. So please treat them kindly. If they visit you tonight, they're trying to have fun and they're holding on to the last shreds of their childhoods. Don't at me with examples of teenagers who don't deserve your kindness, because that way you end up living in a country where the actions of a tiny minority are used to malign, demonise and condemn an entire Oh, God, we already live there. Alan is in Chislehurst. Alan, question or answer?
It's an answer.
Carry on.
Second one in 5 years.
Wow, no one likes a show off, Alan.
I know.
Carry on.
It's the frog's legs.
Yes.
Question.
Oh yeah.
Or rather, the body. You were probably right there, because they don't actually do anything with the body except throw it back.
Oh dear.
I used to import frog's legs into the UK.
Oh yes, I thought so.
And I got contacted by Compassion in World Farming.
Oh yes.
Who sent me lots of garbage about how they produce frog's legs.
Yes.
And it showed me carcasses of frogs floating down rivers and things like that.
Really?
And it was polluting the rivers.
It would do. So they just literally discard frogs' carcasses on an industrial scale?
Yeah.
Albeit that you've considered it to be garbage, did it change your business plan?
Stopped selling.
Did you?
And that actually ran a campaign.
You did?
To stop people eating or buying.
So you went from importing frogs' legs to campaigning for people to stop eating frogs' legs?
Yeah, it was a very small part of the business. It wasn't commercially viable.
Was it not? Because we don't sell enough. We don't eat enough frogs' legs in this country.
Well, they sold for a lot of money, but in small quantities.
Yeah. Isn't that the dream?
Well, it wasn't specialised cheese or anything.
What was the big bulk? What was the big thing in your import-export business?
It wasn't scallop roe either.
No.
No. That was the last.
Was that what you rang in with 5 years ago?
Yes.
And was that Miss Cheryl, or was I just sharing some of my favourite recipes? I love scallop roe.
You asked what they do with scallop roe. Can you remember?
Well, I probably told you, because I'm so boring and predictable, that Nigella Lawson has a lovely recipe for what to do with your scallop roe.
You did say that.
I knew I would have done. I'm so dull. Yeah. So what's the proper answer?
I told you they put it on top of seafood.
Crispy
in
seaweed.
Chinese restaurants.
Crispy seaweed.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's it.
of course you do. Dried scallop. Yes, I did know that. I tried to buy some. In fact, I did buy some.
And you kept mentioning umami and other things.
Umami. Umami. Well, on a scale, I mean, if you were to compare the two experiences, the time you rang in about scallop roe and the time you rang in about frog's legs, do you have a favourite?
The first one.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say.
More relaxed. And you didn't take the mick out of my language.
I never took the mick out of your language.
You are now.
I am not. I'm just asking friendly questions.
Yeah, this was part of seafood imports.
Love it. And was it all seafood that you did?
Yeah.
Love it. And now you're retired, are you? Or you keep one foot in the...
Oh, yes, I'm retired, actually. How did you know?
I don't know. I just, with the way you were phrasing your contributions to the conversation, just sounded like you'd hung up your, whatever it is you wear when you're importing seafood.
Your nets, I think.
Your nets. Can I give you a round of applause to go with the last one, Alan?
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you. That's really fantastic. And they're very quite grim as well, actually. I'm not a big frog legs fan, I've got to be honest, but I'm even less of one now. That I know they just chop the legs off and chuck the rest of the body away. Sal's in Paddington. Sal, question or answer?
I have an answer for you.
Carry on.
When people are being frank with each other, they're actually being Norman.
Yes. Very good.
Because
I see what you did there.
It's got nothing to do with frank.
No.
It's got to do with the lingua franca. Because to use the lingua franca meant you're using a language that both of you understand. You are being open and free in your talking with one another.
Oh, beautiful.
So that's where it comes from. It's where we get the word frankly from as well, and
Mr.
it
Shankly.
comes from Old French.
Love it. Yeah, I love that. Honest
or
and
Norman,
straightforward. Qualifications?
I study linguistics and stuff like that.
That'll do. Do we know about Ernest?
Hemingway?
No, Ernest. You be Frank. You be Frank. I'll be Ernest.
And you'll be Ernest. I see.
Yes.
I understand. Yeah.
No.
Well, I'm hopping mad after the last.
Hey, everyone's Bobby Ball this week. Well played, Sal. 12:54 is the time. David's in Richmond. David, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on.
Yeah, great programme.
It's been a bit special this week. I don't know why. Carry on.
It's a partial answer to the recall question.
Oh, yes. How can we
memory
forget something and know that we've forgotten something but not know what it is that we've forgotten?
Yeah, the partial... Well, I can give you the answer I know, and then I'll have a go at the other one if you want. The reason we say, I know this, once you start doing that, you set up a reverberation circuit, not a hole. A hole.
All right.
So that overloads that system. So if you stop and say, right, I'm not going to think about it, I'm just going to pause.
Yes.
Then that dies down, and it allows the answer to pop in to your hole, if you like. But it allows you to... And it's a great trick. Do it all the time. I use it.
Really?
So just stop thinking about it. You know, you go into a room. What did I come in here for? I went to, what do I want? Stop. Just stop. Let the reverb, let the circuit calm down, and then it'll pop into your head.
Love it.
Yeah. So that's the answer to that bit.
You're only allowed to do one. What's the other bit?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, no. When they said, why can I remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Not sure about that. I think it's just recalling from the hippocampus. It takes a while for the memory. You remember it's there, but you're not sure where it's filed.
Qualifications?
I'm actually a medic, and I like neurophysiology.
Beautifully done. Thank you, David. That was really lovely. And it makes it's all there. That with a little side order of Harry Potter. Gina's in Exeter. Gina, question or answer?
I have an answer for you.
Carry on, Gina.
Right. If Kamala Harris wins the presidency, if she wins the election,
yes,
she would certify. She actually technically presides over herself because she's also the vice president of the Senate, and it's a joint session that has to do this. So she would preside. George H.W. Bush did this back in 1989 when he ran from Alpha Reagan.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go. So is that the qualification that you remember?
Well, I was just going to add, do you remember when Al Gore had to certify
the other Bush, even though he'd lost?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
God.
So there you are.
No.
And it's on video, both of them. So, yeah. Anyway.
Great stuff. No, what do you mean anyway? You've got a round of applause, Gina.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Beautifully done. George and others point out that is why the importance of being earnest is called the importance of being earnest. It's the same joke that I've been clumsily making since we got the question about Frank. You can be called earnest and you can also be earnest, but I don't think we use the word earnest to describe a characteristic because it was once displayed by someone called Ernest. But no one's asked that this week. I think we're not quite out of time, but I need to play a clip. So have I got time for Keith in Upminster? Keith, quickly if you would. Question or answer?
Okay, it's an answer about the moon.
Oh, I thought I'd done this one.
Oh, well,
Go on.
did you mention the Lagrange points?
Oh, yes. The what? Sorry? The what?
Lagrange or Lagrange points.
No. I possibly didn't.
You were correct about the tidal elapse.
Yes.
It's because the moon doesn't actually go around the Earth. The moon and the Earth both
go around the
orbit
sun.
around a point in space known as Lagrange or Lagrange point. I've never known that.
And that's like the anchor that provides the locking that you described, that I described.
Similar, there's other ones for the sun, where the James Webb Telescope is.
Qualifications?
I've just been interested in space since I was about 10 years old.
Genius. Round of applause for Keith the Genius, which helpfully distinguishes himself from the other Keith. I've got it's a shoe in this week. It's Mary in Glasgow all day long. Did you hear this, She?
No.
This is why we do what we do every day. Keith wanted me to do a joke. Ask the question again.
Ask the question. How do slugs get to the top of Monroe's?
Slowly.
How do slugs get to the top of Monroe's?
No, the answer is slowly.
Oh, no, stop it. Stop it immediately.
Oh, on live radio. What a moment of absolute beauty.
Do you know what that reminds me of?
Go on.
Are you familiar with the programme Hold Your Plums from Radio Merseyside all those years ago? It was a quiz of sorts, and it had moments like that many, many times.
Oh, well,
it's really good.
Worth digging it out. So that is Mary explaining why she is the winner, the runaway winner of this week's Mystery Hour board game. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player, where you can also pause and rewind live radio, as well as listen to a range of podcasts. Download it now for free from your app store or head to globalplayer.com. Coming up at 4 on LBC, Ben Kentish is in for Tom Swarbrick, but now, hold your plums, it's Sheila Fogarty.
James O'Brien on LBC.